It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on this Tuesday, October 22nd, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. And we got a whole nother morning for you with engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Phone lines are open. Give us a call at 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971. Or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. We've got a whole lot to cover today. We are 2 weeks out, Bill.
It's crazy to think about. It's really
crazy. 2 weeks out. What do the polls show? Well, John Decker, White House correspondent, NBC News Radio, is going to be joining us to give us some insight, particularly on North Carolina and how that could affect the elections. He'll be joining us a little bit later. Kamala Harris and her dad. I was fascinated by this because you don't hear a lot of media about this. Now, we know every aspect of Donald Trump's personal life, but Kamala Harris's relationship with her father, he only lives 2 miles away from her, and they're not on speaking terms. What happened? We're going to get into that a little bit later. And then P. Diddy. Dude, this was something I decided, Bill, to sit and read the indictment.
Oh, geez, really? Okay. Wow.
Bad boy is a good description.
Oh, yeah.
Of that guy.
Yeah.
So he's not only under federal indictment, he's got all these lawsuits and a whole nother but personal ones popped up yesterday. So Rory O'Neill, NBC Radio, is going to join us in the 8 o'clock hour to detail Sean Combs, the target of a new round of lawsuits by men and women who claimed he abused them. Some were as young as 13 years old.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it appears other celebrities may be targets as well, and were included. They're currently unnamed in the lawsuits, but this thing could get a lot bigger. We'll provide the details on that. And then not good news during open enrollment, Bill.
Yeah.
Our health premiums are going up big time.
Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah. But that's
higher than the rate of inflation.
Yep, they sure are in Colorado. Yep.
So we'll provide some details on that. So a whole lot of news to cover today, but we'll start with news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. On this Tuesday, 42 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 75 today. Should be a beautiful day. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the election is 2 weeks away. Vote now and take your friends and family. Colorado election officials want to reassure voters that it's safe to place their ballots in drop boxes around the state. Secretary of State Jenna Griswold noted Monday that 433 drop boxes and 365 voting centers are now open, the most ever in Colorado. Griswold emphasized that drop boxes are secure with 24-hour surveillance statewide. DJT visited North Carolina Monday, held a rally after he toured hurricane damage in Asheville. Mike Stewart lost his entire business. He prayed for DJT and had some incredible words as the former president stood next to him.
And we lost a business, but there are a lot of people who lost everything, including loved ones. And I believe that you can serve as a great inspiration to this community right now. And the reason being is I think God's given you an indomitable spirit. And no matter what gets thrown at you, you find a way to press through. And I think that'll serve as an inspiration to this community to press on and move forward. I can't think of anything I'd rather have than a warrior leading our country, a warrior who, with the help of God and with faith and prayer, will lead this community, these communities, and this country to greatness. So thank you for being here today. Appreciate
Come here. I never heard anything.
That was a great moment. So the two hug. Meanwhile, Kamala Khan is in Michigan faking the front. Don't ever forget, no one instigates a riot like Kamala Khan.
This is a movement. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not.
Everyone should take note that was her in 2020. Disgraceful. And a lot of black voters in man on the street interviews on social media exposing VP Harris.
I didn't know there was a black president on the ballot. Who are you talking about?
Some might say Kamala Harris would be the.
Some might say that. What does Black America say?
What does Black America say?
Black America says that Kamala Harris's mother is an East Indian. Kamala Harris's father's father is a white slave owner.
That's right.
Kamala Harris's father, who's a Marxist and a communist, is who taught Kamala Harris. If you're going to put a black person in the White House, don't shame us by giving us somebody who's really of another identity and just has dark skin. Barack Obama was another example.
Harris is declining a live interview with Elon Musk on X. That's according to billionaire investor Mark Cuban, who really is starting to look like Rachel Maddow. There's no question about that. He said he told Harris, the Harris campaign, he could try to connect them with Musk, who owns X, but Harris and the campaign reportedly said that they didn't trust that Musk would stick to the topic of the election. Okay. Denver's skyline could look a lot differently by 2050. The Denver City Council approved a rezoning measure Monday that will allow redevelopment of the area around Ball Arena. Kroenke Sports and Entertainment wants to create a new neighborhood around the arena, including new skyscrapers, housing, retail space, and parks. Let's hope the parks stay clean if they do that. The council also approved a measure that will allow the development to have buildings that are higher than the current view plane in exchange for new affordable housing. The agreements also led to a promise by the company to keep the Nuggets and Avalanche in Denver through 2050. Police in Aurora say a teen who was killed by an officer early Sunday morning was holding his mother hostage before he was shot. Officials discussed the shooting of an 18-year-old suspect during a press conference Monday. Investigators say the teen was involved in an argument with other people inside an apartment and that he threatened them with a weapon. He also allegedly injured his mother before releasing her and then opening fire on police. No officers were hurt, and the shooting is being investigated. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 40 in Lone Tree, 41 in Westminster, 42 in Denver. We are just underway. Jeff and Billy continue on this Monday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Sunny, mild, nice October weather. Will be in the mid-70s today. Fair cool tonight, low to mid-40s, and mid-70s on Wednesday. Might get a little breezy in the afternoons. It will be cooler Thursday as the front passes through. Highs will be 60s, brisk northwest winds, 60s Friday, 60s and 70s and dry, and mild through the weekend and into Monday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're just 2 weeks out from this election. Who's going to win? It's a big one. And it kind of goes back and forth. Nate Silver, who used to be with the New York Times and then ran his own program now, writes this. So who's going to win the election? Well, honestly, we don't know, but we can give you some probabilistic guess. He says that it is likely that Kamala Harris will win the popular vote, but that Donald Trump will win the presidential vote with the Electoral College. Polymarket, which is running bets, and I don't know how to read this. It sounds like there's $2 billion bet on this. I don't know, but they're projecting Donald Trump wins 64.3% to Kamala Harris 35.7%. So if you go to 270towin.com, you can actually play around with your little map. And I want to take Bill through this. We'll see who Jeff and Bill think is going to win. Now, according to 270 to win, they think that there's only 7 states that are swing states: Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. Bill, let's start to work through these states here real quick. Who do you think is going to win Nevada?
Ooh, Nevada. If I have to bet today, Harris.
You think Harris
on that one? Yeah.
Okay, let's do Harris there.
Yeah,
this will be Bill's thing. I think the no taxes on tips actually puts it in kind of a Trump category, but let's put it into a leans Harris. How about Arizona?
Arizona, that's a tough one for me because that's a hard one because I'm not sure how it's going to break. It broke last time for Biden, which leads me to believe that there are a number of Republicans there that are comfortable in choosing down ballot Republicans, but are absolutely comfortable not choosing Trump. I also think Carrie Lake hurts Republican turnout there. But I know that right now it's forecasted for Trump, but just by a hair. Ooh, that's a tough one. I honestly, I have no idea. The thing is I think that Kamala will take it because of the previous pattern holding from last election, but I don't know about new voters, and I don't know what Carrie Lake's impact is going to be on that. So I'm really, really iffy on this one. But I'll take Harris on this one, but I'm not solid on that at all.
Harris on that one.
That
puts the Democrats at 243. Don't underestimate Charlie Kirk's turnout mechanism. All right, let's do Georgia.
Georgia, I think Trump. That one, I think, yeah.
You think I know
that Democrats have a really, really, really high opinion of their ability to take Georgia, and I just don't think so. I think this time around, I think I think that's Trump's. But again, I'm an idiot. All right,
235 to 243, Democrats in the lead under Billy's map here.
Yeah.
North Carolina.
Ooh, that's another one that's really, really tough.
But that's only gone, I looked at the history of this, that's only gone Democrat once in like the last 30, 40 years. And that was Obama in 08.
Yeah, if it was going to go again, it would be now. And I think that, if it was prior to the storm, I think that Harris has a better shot at it. I'm still not convinced, in part because governor's race and stuff there. I'll take Trump on that one just because of the history of North Carolina. I can't see her getting over the hill there.
All right. Yeah. So now Republicans are in the lead in Billy's map, 251 to 243. 3 states left.
Oof.
Michigan,
Harris.
Yeah,
I'm fairly confident on that one. I think she's going to get Michigan. I don't think that's necessarily going to be a problem.
258 right now. Yep. If she takes Michigan. All right, 2 states left.
Yep.
Wisconsin,
Harris. Yeah. And I think what's going to happen there they're going to be college kids, and there's the urban pockets, especially up and around Madison. I think Madison for me is going to be the key. If the turnout is good in Madison, she wins. That's going to be
so. If this is Bill's map,
yeah,
Democrats at 268, Republicans 251.
Jeez.
It comes down to what I always said it was going to be.
Yep.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Pennsylvania, that's a tough one. And that one, I think that one, just like how I feel about Arizona, that being such a toss-up, I think it's complete toss-up as well. I have no idea on that one, honestly. What way, because I will change my mind 5 times today on what way Pennsylvania will go. But if I was going to bet today, I'll bet Harris. And I'm not confident on that. But that's the way that
I'll tell you
go.
what
Not
terrifies me about Pennsylvania, because as somebody who lost a big race in Pennsylvania in 2006 with Rick Santorum, we lost by 16 percentage points.
Oh, jeez.
It was one of the biggest losses, and all Bob Casey did was go, "I'm not Rick Santorum."
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Is the Senate race, because the polls are not good. I'm gonna pull it up here now for Bob Casey. They have Casey up on average. Real Clear Politics has Casey up 2 percentage points.
Wow.
In Pennsylvania. And so is there enough split ticket? Now, Bob Casey's a really famous name because his dad was a big name in Pennsylvania. So the Casey name, a little bit like the Armstrong name or the Owens name in Colorado, big name, strong name ID.
Yeah.
So you could carry that. But could you have 3% swing in Pennsylvania on a split ticket?
Yeah, that's strange. Again, and that's the thing that we don't know. And that's where I go back to Arizona, is we know the behavior in the previous election. The reason that Biden took Arizona is because Republicans skipped voting there. And it's not that they went over and chose Biden. They just left the line blank. They just went further down ticket. That's what they found in the numbers afterwards. And so that, if the swing happens, that's the reason it'll happen, is you'll have people that'll just leave it blank. I don't think you're going to have people that are rock solid Republicans going, "Hey, I'm gonna vote for Kamala." I have a feeling they're just going to not vote on that one and then choose things later down the ticket if it happens.
Yeah, it's a serious issue. So if the map goes the way Bill thinks it might, and they get Pennsylvania, Democrats will win 287 to Republicans 251.
Yeah.
But if Republicans take Pennsylvania and you have that one little blue dot in Nebraska, right? Because they vote, they allocate their electors based upon congressional support. You could end up, Bill, here's one. If the Republicans take Pennsylvania, 270 to 268.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy. Yeah, how close that is. And then you think we're a divided country now. Yeah, get a helmet.
So Republicans could win 270. And as Nate Silver thinks, they could end up with the popular vote. But Republicans end up winning the presidential because of the electoral college set up there.
Yeah.
This is pretty wild.
And that is, you want to see people turn pretty quickly on the idea of the electoral college. That could do it, because it would be the number of times that the Republicans lose the popular vote but gain the White House. And I don't think the Republicans, that's going to be, that'll be a real big issue. And it may not be doing away with the electoral college. There may be other ways to go around it. We'll have to see. But
like Colorado did
against it. Yeah, I understand
the
that
National Popular Vote Compact.
Yeah, and that could happen. You could get 1 or 2 more states, but it would depend on, again, local state legislatures. And we'll see. We'll see about that one. The other one I'm surprised nobody's pushed for is, rather than taking away the idea of what's in Nebraska, going that direction, carving up the congressional districts and allocating your electoral votes that way.
As opposed to winner take all based upon the states.
Yeah, which is interesting. And again, on a side note, for all of we love the electoral college. We love the electoral college. It's strange how each party at times wants to change how they're doing that in Nebraska, because Nebraska is functional,
right.
A state.
And Republicans
a state
tried to change it.
Yeah, but it is a functional electoral college. It's a mini electoral college. And yeah, it's funny how different parties look at that differently based on just wanting to win. So and that's why I kind of make fun of the electoral college. I have a feeling that it is less this bastion of American greatness that we hang on to. Instead, it's the idea that one side believes they can win this way and they don't have to win the popular vote. And whoever is behind in that will support the electoral college. Not the same thing. Not the same thing.
I think it's the exact same thing.
Not at all.
That people like the election system that puts their people into power.
Yeah.
So I do think Trump's going to win Arizona and Nevada. So my map would look Republican win 287 to Democrat 251. I don't think right now, my gut doesn't tell me that Trump's going to win Wisconsin and Michigan, but the polls up in Real Clear Politics show that Trump's actually ahead in those states, in those battleground states. So, man, 2 weeks out, give me a call. Tell me who you think is going to win. I think Trump's in a much better position now than he was in 16 and in 20, definitely in 20. Would love to hear from you. Do you think Kamala Harris is going to pull this out? Because what she has behind her is like the all-star, AAA rated, best service out there ground game. Democrats have a much better ground game than Republicans do. They are out there collecting the ballots. They, in many states, have got the election system they want, the all mail-in ballot, the ballot harvesting option, all that stuff that benefits their turnout base. So in many ways, that could push Kamala Harris over the edge. Charlie Kirk yesterday talking about that, going, you can't underestimate their turnout operations. We did in 2012. We never saw any Barack Obama yard signs in Colorado. Yeah. We hosted a huge rally at Red Rocks just about 2 weeks before the election, had to turn 4,000 people away from the event. We thought we had all this energy, all this momentum, didn't see anything happening. It was like a duck, right?
Yeah.
You don't see the feet paddling underneath. And then lo and behold, the Democrats had a turnout mechanism that just pushed. I mean, I don't even think the polls were closed in Colorado before they called it for Barack Obama, because Georgia went Obama, Virginia went Obama. I think Ohio and Pennsylvania maybe did. But it was like this blue wave just came and we didn't even see it coming.
Yeah. And there's another group out there that is, and I was reading some stuff about it this weekend. I finally found a piece where someone dove deep into it. And I've been curious about this, is the Swifties. It's that you want to talk about a group of people that is going to push a turnout machine in a specific demographic. Yeah. Be careful.
Yeah. I think there's a crossover with Swifties and the abortion vote.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's crossover there.
And it's kind of that Venn diagram stuff.
And I was reading some stuff about how they're reaching out to voters in very Taylor Swift-esque ways, things that are completely and totally unconventional. And if it has traction, that could end up changing some of the results in some of the states, because some of the votes are going to be so close.
And I wouldn't even see it. Because the way targeted advertising takes place, the registered Republican that votes in every race and is 42-year-old and lives in rural Colorado is not going to get a Taylor Swift ad targeted to him.
No. And in fact, here's the thing: it's not ads. They're doing it differently. It's a whole bunch of viral type stuff and communicating with each other and reaching out to other women, and the way they're doing it, and they're doing it in a very Taylor Swift way. And we're talking about things like,
you make a bracelet?
Yes, bracelets, posters, Post-it notes, clothing, meetings, things like that. It has zero to do with advertising, and that's what I found so interesting about it. They're doing it. If you want to talk about a grassroots guerrilla-esque campaign, it's exactly what the Swifties are doing, but they're doing it because they're going to connect with other Swifties and other women in that demographic. And it's going to be completely under the national radar. No one is going to see it. And if it works, it may not change. It can change results in some of the states that are close. It can change results in states like Nevada and Arizona, places that are in these really, really, really thin margins. It can change them. It absolutely can, but we won't know that until later.
What's the equivalent for the MAGA bros to a T-Swift bracelet?
I don't think they have it. And that's
buy your bro a steak.
Yeah.
Bring him a steak.
And that's the problem with it, is that lack of that bond and communication. And again, but this is in the T-Swift arena. This is not in the Democrat arena. These are Swifties that are coming over into the political sphere. So they are coming at it from a completely different angle and doing it differently, and they are connecting their own way. And I was reading very interesting reports.
Do you think Kamala Harris is as likable as T-Swift is?
No, not at all. But I don't think it matters at this point. And it doesn't matter because of that single truth that Donald Trump decided to put his foot in his mouth and kick the Swifties. I hate Taylor Swift. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's all they need. They don't have to like Kamala. They just know that Don hates Taylor. That's all they have to know. It has zero to do with likability on Harris at that point. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. And that's the mistake that he made.
Yeah,
that's
he
it.
definitely
It
goes
matter.
after those sacred cows to maybe his benefit, maybe his detriment. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
All right, coming up just in a second, we're going to have John Decker, a White House news correspondent with NBC Radio, joining us to dive into North Carolina, how the storm could have changed things there. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Storm-ravaged North Carolina is getting a lot of attention from both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. With Election Day approaching, why is North Carolina so important? To provide some context for us, White House correspondent John Decker joins us. John, good morning. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, good morning to both of you. Hope you're doing well today.
Right. Give us some insight on North Carolina. We're playing around on 270 to win. It's obviously an important state, but how are things shifting here in the last 2 weeks?
Well, it is an important state. It has 16 electoral college votes. It's a state that Donald Trump won in both 2016 and 2020. But in 2020, it was the margin of victory that concerns the campaign because it was less than 1%, the smallest margin of all the states that he won in 2020. And polling indicates it's a very close race in North Carolina once again between Harris and Trump. It's the reason why Trump was in North Carolina yesterday, in Western North Carolina, in Asheville area. And it's the reason why he's in North Carolina once again today. He's playing defense, so to speak, in the sense that it is a state that he won twice. And yet here he is spending a lot of time in that state, making certain that it's in his column in 2024.
Talking with John Decker, he's a White House news correspondent. John, how does the governor's race, Mark Robertson, play into all this?
Well, it's not helpful to Donald Trump, that's for sure. Mark Robinson's numbers are such that he, according to most polls, trailing by anywhere from 16 to 17 points. So he's not going to be helpful. And of course, you want to have a united party for any election. And, you know, the Republican Party with Mark Robinson as their standard bearer for governor. He's not going to win, but the big unknown is he a drag in any way for Republicans, particularly Donald Trump, in this election?
Yeah, the split ticket is always interesting to me. We were talking about Arizona in the previous segment as well. Kerry Lake seems to be losing there. Also in Pennsylvania, the the Senate race up against Bob Casey. Do you see historically that people are willing to split a ticket?
Oh, I think that's the norm these days. The old days of just going into a voting booth and pulling a big lever for Democrat or Republican are gone for most voters. I mean, voters still do that, don't get me wrong. But for most voters, they look and see the individual candidates. That's the reason why in a place like Ohio, for instance, that Donald Trump won by 8 points in both 2016 and 2020, you have Sherrod Brown running for another 6-year term. And I think he's going to make it. I think there are going to be enough ticket splitters in Ohio such that Donald Trump will win Ohio, but I think Sherrod Brown is likely to win another 6-year term in the U.S. Senate.
Talking with John Decker, he's a White House correspondent. John, what should we be looking for in these last 2 weeks? Are there really undecided voters out there?
There are. I don't know who they are. If you interview one of them, send them my way. I'd love to meet this person. We're people that say they're undecided, but that's what we see in poll after poll. There's typically about 4% of the electorate that says they're undecided to pollsters. They can't make a choice between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And we see this every election cycle. And what happens is it's whoever in the last 7 to 10 days, we're not there just yet, but whoever in the last 7 to 10 days, they sway towards, it's that candidate that wins the White House. We saw that happen in 2016 with Donald Trump. We saw that happen in 2020 with Joe Biden. And that's what this is all about, reaching out to those individuals with just 14 days to go, knowing full well that they could decide who wins this November election.
Talking with John Decker, White House correspondent. Final question, John, are you seeing a high early vote turnout in some of these swing states?
Yeah, we are. We saw record numbers. First day of voting happening in Nevada, record numbers. First day of voting happening in Georgia, also in North Carolina. So that's a good thing. I think that it's always important to get as many people out there voting as possible, exercising their right. We had about 65% of eligible voters voting in the last election cycle. And obviously, I think both campaigns would like to see that number increase. They're working to turn out their base, and turning out the base is also a big part of who wins this November election.
John Decker, White House correspondent, thank you so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. I would love to hear from our listeners. We are now 2 weeks out from the election. I am optimistic. I wasn't probably 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That Donald Trump was going to win this. I felt that the machine behind Kamala Harris was going to pull it together. And in this case, I think Trump has erased the original bump that Kamala Harris had coming out of the DNC. I think in these 7 swing states, Billy and I disagree a little bit on Nevada, Arizona, but we agree on Georgia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Michigan. It's going to be a close one, but I think, like Nate Silver says, he gives the victory by a margin of 53% to 47% because of the Electoral College to Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I've looked at Silver's models. It's some of the polls he's using are interesting. I'm not saying that he's wrong. Some of the polls are interesting. And I think you're right that Trump has erased some of the bump that Harris had coming out of the DNC. But the other thing that's really, really weird is Harris has erased some of the advantages that Trump had on issues like the economy. The stuff that I'm seeing is they're within 1 to 2 percentage points as far as who can handle the economy better in some polls. That is crazy, given that Trump was up over 10 percentage points on Biden, and he was up early on Kamala as well. And some of that, the immigration has even tightened. Not saying that Kamala's within spitting distance necessarily, but that was a double-digit lead for Trump, and it's now down to single digits. And I want to say it's under 5 percentage points, and that is ridiculous. So if Harris has the ability to close on those issues, then that last 7 to 10 days could change things for her based on trajectory. It also could keep Trump on his path to the White House as well. And the scary part about this is we talk about those undecided voters and those people that are going to kind of make it up in the last 7 to 10 days. It's not because they're sitting down going, I don't know. It's they're not paying attention.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's exactly it.
Dude, I will have
pay attention.
Very smart people that will go unnamed right now, but very smart, like New York Times best-selling author smart, that will text me the day of the election for my ballot guide.
Yeah. And because they haven't been paying attention. And that's and that's the weird part is I've seen over the last 3 weeks, I've seen a number of different interviews with those undecided voters, people that genuinely say, I haven't made up my mind. And the weird part about it is, to a T, this is just universal. Every single one of them says, well, I need to look into it. I need to get more information. It's not that they are sitting here going, oh, it could be Trump, could be Kamala.
Right.
They're just not paying attention.
Oh, dude, it's World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
it's lots of other things other than the crazy election stuff that you and I dig into. But here's another thing I love to hear from people about. Give us a call on this. The split ticket voters.
Yeah.
Bill, I will never vote for a Democrat.
Really?
There is not a Democrat unless all of a sudden the Democrat Party or some candidate shows up in Colorado and says, well, I'm a pro-life Democrat. Maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly.
But here's the thing is I've been split ticket voting for over 20 years.
I can't.
So this is
who are those people?
Right here.
And what is it? How do you do it? For me, it's policy principle based. Democrats' policy platform is terrible. I could never vote for a Democrat.
Yeah. See, for me, I've been split ticket voting for 20 years. And so that's interesting now that people are talking about, hey, all these people that aren't going just choosing all Republicans or all Democrats.
What do you make your choice on?
A lot of times based on the person and what I think is going to be important based on the policies for them. I have split ticket choices on my ballot that I filled out and dropped in the ballot box yesterday that I have people that I voted for on both parties. Yeah. I do it all the time. I sit there and I take a look.
Do you ever go like third party?
I have.
You have?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Ross Perot?
No. I have gone third party in part sometimes because I dislike both of the other people. It's not because I want the third party. The third party for me has been a protest vote. It's like I can't stand the other two people on there.
If I don't like a Republican, maybe I might not vote in that particular, maybe, I don't know, but I could never circle the box for a Democrat. I just never, that'll probably never happen.
That's funny. I find that fascinating because for me, I don't see the issue in going back and forth and choosing the best person inside of that race. But again, I've had a long time to get used to it. It's again, 20 years plus is how long I've been unaffiliated. I'm not new to this. And so I was done with both parties more than 2 decades ago. I'm like, you both suck. So
all right.
I'm just going to go through and pick people.
If you're a split ticket voter, please give me a call. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. 720-819-5115. I am not one. I am straight party. The closest I could ever be into a split ticket is like a pro-choice, all-in, socially liberal Republican. I might just skip it, but I am never filling in the Democrat bubble ever. Could never do that. Let me know what you think. Here's a text message, 7586. Ticket splitting takes more thinking.
Oh.
I don't know if I agree with that, but
I can see what they're saying, because if all you're going to do is vote Republican, then it doesn't matter what the candidate is. It just matters the R behind the name or the D behind the name. So actually what the candidate's doing, saying, or not necessarily, because again, if you're only going to vote for Republicans, and
like I said, you can skip and not vote. I don't think that's ticket splitting. Ticket splitting in my mind would be voting for a different party. But if you know the party platforms and you actually read them, there's not a chance ever I would vote for a Democrat, but who knows? So I'm not sure. It requires more thinking to split the ticket, but love to hear from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Look, Colorado Christian University has got a great event coming up. They want to invite you to an exclusive luncheon and lecture on Friday, November 15th, featuring the 48th President of the United States, Mike Pence, his wife, former Second Lady Karen Pence, along with him. In partnership with the Centennial Institute and CCU President Eric Hogue, this event offers a unique opportunity to engage in conversation with Vice President Pence, one of America's most dedicated public servants, sharing his insights on the future of the conservative movement. Be among the first to experience the new Armstrong Center as CCU launches its President Speaker Series on this historic occasion. Go to ccu.edu/Pence to get tickets and learn more. Limited tickets are available for breakfast with Karen Pence, lunch with Mike Pence, and morning and evening lectures. Throughout the day, you'll engage in conversation on leadership, faith, and service with these distinguished guests. Please join CCU on November 15th for these events with Mike and Karen Pence. Go to ccu.edu/Pence to get tickets and learn more. That's ccu.edu/Pence. Bill, a question that just came to mind is, if people are so willing to split tickets, then do we need ranked choice voting?
Oh, interesting.
Right? If they're willing to jump over and pick and go this way,
or is ranked choice voting the idea behind, the idea of split tickets? It's just splitting it anyway. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
All right. Give us a call. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$100 gift cards from Sean D's Persian Grill in the Denver Tech Center. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Lots of good text messages coming in. The Breadman. Kamala's winning strategy is I'm more MAGA than Trump.
Yeah, I asked Breadman about that one because I'm curious about the MAGA. Could it actually be a drag on Trump?
Yeah, does Trump have a ceiling?
Yeah,
I don't know.
ceiling.
I don't think it's MAGA. I think it might be his personality that would create that ceiling, not necessarily the policies. Faith, I'm a registered Democrat and have voted for Mike Hoffman every single time he's been on the ballot. I find him to be a reasonable man of principle. So Faith, the ticket splitter there. I've moved to Denver and I couldn't find a way to vote for Mike Johnston. Conversely, definitely not a fan of his. Billy, 8422. You don't vote for the person. It's the policies. It's the party.
I disagree.
With 8422 on that
I
one.
disagree. And here's the reason why is let me just hold up the big, the bad, the ugly. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she of the space laders and the weather control. So you're telling me that just based on party, you're going to go ahead and vote for that clown. And she is a clown.
Because the alternative is Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrat.
But the issue for me is
policies.
That's the issue is that if I'm going to vote all party, then I'm going to put a clown in a position of power that gets to vote on things over my life. No, I'm not going to do that. And that's where the party gets me. The strict party voting. And and again, anybody out there is free to choose all party because just like you do, go right ahead. But that's the reason why I don't vote all party is because I'm not going to put a clown in a position of power simply because they've decided to put on a jersey. I'm not going to do it. That's just not how I'm wired.
And for me, it's simple math that if more of the clowns on the other side have their people into power, they get to make all of the decisions. And you might say, well, they kind of sidelined Timmy Hernandez and Elizabeth Adams, but still, it was their party that had all the power to make all the decisions. And I'd rather have a loony on the right in power if it means that the entire Republican Party gets to stop what the Democrats are doing.
And that's a fair point. It's a fair point. I can't put the lunatic in power. I can't do it.
Well, speaking of lunacy,
yes,
Billy,
speaking of lunacy, it is time for lunacy on the Jeff and Bill Show. It's a portion of the show that we call You Choose the News, everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. I have spent mere moments this morning scouring the interwebs to find really dumb stories about us humans and giving them even more ridiculous headlines so we can play this fake radio news game show. Why? It's fun and silly and stupid. Also, nobody in charge has any idea that we take over the airwaves and do something this ridiculous because they don't wake up until 7. So we have just about 7 minutes left of this freedom. Alrighty, and this is how we embrace it. Here we go, gentlemen. Blake Olson in the newsroom. Jeff Hunt in the studio. Here are your headlines, gentlemen. Headline number 1, we need a new definition. Headline number 2, quick goodbye. Headline number 3, expert in action. And headline number 4, thanks, but no. Your choice.
Start
Mr.
with
Hunt.
thanks, but no.
Yeah, thanks, but no. Oddly enough, we are talking about voting. We are going to the lovely city of Dallas right now. And the Dallas Police Association says, yeah, thanks, but no. They're referring to the Dallas Hero Amendments. They've done little acronyms for these amendments, and they're particularly not happy with Amendment U. Now, this is odd. What does Amendment U do in Dallas? It would require the city to hire hundreds of new police officers. But the president of the Dallas Police Association says, please vote against this. We don't need this. Not because Dallas is super safe, but what they're saying is the idea and the timeline they have for adding a new 900 officers is ridiculous. It is not something that we can accomplish reasonably, nor get these people hired, screened, trained, and on the streets in the timeline they've set up. It would strain the department and our ability to stop the criminals in order to put all these new cops on the street. That thanks, but no. Interesting, huh?
Yeah. I agree with them. That takes time.
I was talking to a guy with Denver PD and their training division and all that, and he said things aren't going that good these days.
I bet not.
Quality of the candidate, meh.
Yeah,
Imagine
and that
that
could be it too, trying to find 900 of them. Yeah,
you attack the police, and that's what happens.
Right.
All right, Blake Olson, your choice. We need a new definition: quick goodbye or expert in action.
Quick goodbye.
Yeah, quick goodbye. That's what you're going to have to do if you fly out of the New Zealand airport. They are tired with these loving long goodbyes like in the romance novels. They're saying, no, 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 young ladies and sirs. Your goodbye cuddles are now limited to 3 minutes. They have put up signs. Yes, signs that says max hug time when you're going away is now 3 minutes. I don't know who's timing it. I don't know any of that. But yes, the airport chief executive said, well, the drop-off can be kind of intense. People getting in and out all the time. They want to move the cars along. So yeah, they're going to limit you to 3 minutes of the hugging and kissing. So I know. Kind of like a middle school dance.
For that.
Yeah, exactly. All righty. Jeff Hunt, your final choice this morning, sir. We need a new definition or expert in action?
Expert in action.
An expert in action. We are traveling to Portland, Oregon for this one. A judge in King County, Washington, has ruled the owner of a labor law poster company has violated labor law nearly 600,000 times. Yes. They did a whole bunch of stuff with scan letters and having people. Yeah. The whole idea, though, is they invented the communications. They had people working hours they shouldn't have. So, yeah, basically, the company was charged of printing the posters that outline the labor laws that you have in the workroom or the break room at your office. They were breaking the law. Because who better to do it than the expert that's doing the laws and the signs, right? Am I right? Yes. All right. That is it. That's the end of You Choose the News. Back to you, sir.
All right. When we return, why does Kamala Harris not talk to her father? He lives just 2 miles away from her. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City, and we just sent that cackle all across the state of Colorado. Good morning. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running with a whole morning for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, pick up the phone, give us a call, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Phone lines are open at 303-696-1971, or you can text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, it's from the New York Times, Kamala Harris and the influence of an estranged father just 2 miles away. It was something I noticed during her DNC speech and other speeches. She doesn't talk about her dad all that much. Is it because he's a creepy dude? Well, not necessarily. They went through a contentious divorce, yes, but her dad's tried to reconcile. Kamala, not all that interested. As she embraced some of her mom's bitterness towards him. Is that a good sign for somebody that wants to be the president of the United States? Love to hear from you, but we're going to dive into this story coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning. Why is the New York Times just getting to this now, 2 weeks before the election?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question, and there's not a lot of coverage on this. And this is part of one of the things I wanted to explore is we know every aspect of Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
We have had
He's been vetted.
We have had people go on national television and talk about the way his private parts look. But with Kamala Harris's relationship with her father, we have almost nothing on that. And
should be day one.
I'll be honest, Blake, I've started to read some of his writings. I'm not so sure he's the crazy Marxist that some are making him out to be.
Interesting.
And I think that's part of the reason why Kamala doesn't want to talk to him. He has offered to do town halls with her to talk about economic policy. And some fellow professors at Stanford had said, well, he's not quite the Thomas Sowell economist. He's definitely not part of the Marxist crew. He believes in the power of the free market, but he kind of leans more towards government intervention. And that might be why Kamala has not been doing some towns. Although he might be a little more free market than she is. It's kind of so he also created the plan to help restore Jamaica's economy.
Correct.
And
I heard that.
The unemployment rate was at 15 percentage points. He was able to bring it down to about 5 percentage points. So he was successful there. I'm going to dive in days later into the actual plans he put together to give some analysis on that. But when Kamala Harris embraced decriminalizing and legalizing marijuana and kind of claimed it coming from her Jamaican roots, he wrote a very strongly worded response saying, you are embarrassing the people of Jamaica. We're not all potheads here.
Right. Absolutely.
So he's kind of an interesting dude.
No, that's going to be great talk. I look forward to that. He is. And that should have been done a long time ago by those great media outlets with all those great journalists.
Right.
But they didn't do anything. And they never do.
And then Blake, I could keep going on this. I'll just go one more second on this.
Yep.
The rebranding they have done on her prosecution and incarceration of non-violent offenders in California, her attorney general's office at one point, when the Supreme Court ordered her to release people because the prison population in California was at 145% capacity, right? It had 50 people using one toilet.
Correct.
And the Supreme Court orders her to come up with a plan to release people. There was a plan that they looked at lots of different ways to do it, but the easiest was just to go, the guys that are nonviolent, let's release them because they have earned good time. So those that have been obedient, imprisoned, and are nonviolent, we can release them based upon their good time served, and it will solve the whole problem for us. She refused to do it. And one of the arguments that came from her own office, not directly from her, but it was a memo written by one of her employees, is we can use these jailers for free to fight the wildfires in California. Essentially engaging in like forced labor.
Wow. Where
has that been vetted? When she ran in 2019 and 2020, they ripped her to shreds on that stuff. That's why she never even made it to Iowa. But now
is that the reason?
Oh, yeah. Now that she's the Democrat nominee, they've almost buried all of it. You have to really go back and look for it. You have to pull articles from 1819.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we have no idea about her. And Candace Owens has uncovered some stuff too. She's done a great job recently on her grandmother and the photo in her book. So yeah, we don't know. She hasn't been vetted. That's a whole another issue. Looking forward to that, Jeff. 42 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 75 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story: a woman in Fort Collins was shot after trying to stop two men trying to break into her car outside her home. She was struck in the leg and recovering, and the two males were wearing dark colored clothing, hoodies, and backpacks, and considered armed and dangerous as police ask for the public's help. An Auraria police officer who was shot in the arm on Monday morning while working on campus is recovering. Two officers tried to stop a man for trespassing before he ran off, but they found him later. Police say he resisted arrest and pulled out a gun. He was eventually tracked down and now faces an attempted murder charge. Denver drivers enjoying a drop in the price of gas. Gas Buddy surveyed more than 800 gas stations in the Denver area and found that the average price per gallon is now under $3. That's a drop of more than 16 cents from last week.
This is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not.
There she is, the instigator, dangerous. Never forget that. She gins up violence and supports it. Forget justice for all. Just go riot. And she was a district attorney and wants to be your president. Kamala Khan and DJT are hitting the swing states today. We are 2 weeks away from the election. Harris stops in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, while Trump is in North Carolina for the second straight day. On Monday, Mike Stewart, who lost his business in the hurricane, prayed for the president after he had some eloquent words for the former president.
Father, I thank you for this man that you have raised up in this moment, in this season, for your purposes. And I pray that you would anoint him, that things aren't done just by might or by power, but by your spirit. So I ask that you would anoint President Donald Trump and give him a spirit of wisdom and understanding and insight as he moves to lead this nation back to greatness. In Jesus' name I pray.
Wow, that's something you don't hear that often. That's incredible. And I appreciate that from both and from everybody. That's really nice.
It was quite a moment. DJT hammers home the mission.
We're going to have our country back. We're going to grab our country. We're going to take it back. We're a nation in decline. We're not going to be a nation in decline for much longer. That I can tell you. And we're going to make America great again. Very simple. It's a very simple slogan. It's the greatest movement in the history of our country. We're going to make America great again.
Plenty of Christians not happy with Kamala Khan stiff-arming Jesus a couple of days ago, even if she had no idea what she was doing. Thousands of believers creating new inspired messages and gospel material.
Oh, Jesus. Welcome Kamala's rallies. I said, Jesus. Welcome at Kamala's rallies. Jesus. Welcome at Kamala's rallies. Calling on
Don't forget that one. And maybe it'll be available on Amazon soon. Denver skyline could look a lot different by 2050. The Denver City Council approved a rezoning measure Monday that will allow a redevelopment of the area around Ball Arena. Kroenke Sports and Entertainment wants to create a new neighborhood around the arena, including new skyscrapers, housing, retail space, and parks. The council also approved a measure that will allow the development to have buildings that are higher than the current view plane in exchange for new affordable housing. The agreement also led to a promise by the company to keep the Nuggets and the Avalanche in Denver through 2050. It's 40 in Highlands Ranch, 41 in Broomfield, 42 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. It is Tuesday. I think I said Monday last hour. It is Tuesday. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Sunny, mild, nice October weather. Will be in the mid-70s today. Fair cool tonight, low to mid-40s, and mid-70s on Wednesday. Might get a little breezy in the afternoons. It will be cooler Thursday as the front passes through. Highs will be 60s, brisk northwest winds, 60s Friday, 60s and 70s and dry, and mild through the weekend and into Monday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So the other day, I heard some interesting news. I decided to go do a deep dive on this. Kamala Harris's dad, who, by the way, is named Donald J. Harris.
That's weird.
Oh, my gosh. I think God has the best sense of humor. He only lives 2 miles away from Kamala Harris, and they don't talk. And I noticed during the DNC, she hardly references him. And so what happened there? Is he a really bad dude? And then Republicans are claiming he's a Marxist. Is that true? But then why doesn't Kamala Harris want to talk to him? If they both believe in Marxist economic policies and government intervention, well, why aren't they talking and he helped influence her campaign? And I think it's a lot more nuanced than kind of some simple talking points. So went back and dove into his biography. New York Times has done a piece just the other day on her dad titled Kamala Harris and the Influence of an Estranged Father Just 2 Miles Away. He writes pretty prolifically, and he writes in a thing called Jamaica Global Online about their relationship. One of the articles is about Kamala Harris's Jamaican heritage. The idea that he would take her oftentimes back to Jamaica regularly, introduce her to her history. He's kind of a big man around Jamaica. Graduated near the top of his class, went on to become a pretty influential professor even at Stanford, and then helped Jamaica with their own economic policies. So he would bring her back and take her to the places where he grew up. He seemed like a rather doting father. Even went into a very contentious custody battle during the divorce. Somebody very close in my life who grew up with a single parent was reminding me yesterday that, it's nice to have, even in some cases, a contested custody, because in their particular life, there wasn't one. They were just kind of abandoned by one of their spouses. And so the dad wanted to be a part of her life. And it was during the custody battles that, back then, dads didn't get a fair shake. And I think it's probably evident even today that some of the dads don't get a fair shake. So he wanted to be in her life, couldn't be, Donald J. Harris, this comes from the New York Times, 86, a distinguished economist, lives with his second wife only 2 miles from the vice president's official residence in Washington, yet has been estranged for years from his daughter, and the two seldom speak. Mrs. Harris's convention speech was a rare instance where she even named her father publicly. A striking contrast to the praise she showers regularly on her mother, a biomedical scientist who died in 2009, to the extent that Dr. Harris has been mentioned during his daughter's presidential campaigns. It is Mrs. Harris's detractors who have often brought him up. Donald Trump says he's a Marxist professor in economics. We'll have to see about that. There's some evidence that that's not exactly the case, but he does lean a little bit more progressive in his economic policies. But the New York Times interviewed more than a dozen friends and former colleagues of Dr. Harris, reveals 2 notable themes. First, Ms. Harris's father, a Jamaican-born emeritus professor of economics at Stanford University, has been a critic of mainstream economic theory from the left, but is hardly a Marxist. Second, Dr. Harris has been a mostly absent figure from his daughter's life, but not an irrelevant one. Well before she set out on her political trajectory, her father was racking up achievements and, like her mother, setting high standards that in retrospect help explain Miss Harris's own ascent. Friends of both say the estrangement set in motion by her parents' split when Miss Harris was a child may have much to do with traits father and daughter share as it does their decades of differences. Both are focused, demanding much of themselves and others. Both can be generous mentors and devoted friends, New York Times writes, while warily maintaining a zone of privacy from everyone else. Both place high premiums on loyalty, and both can be stubborn. It was about 5 years old when Kamala Harris's parents got divorced. It was 1969 when they separated. The couple divorced in 1972 after he lost a bitter custody battle that brought his closeness to Miss Harris and her young sister to an abrupt halt. Dr. Harris wrote in a 2018 essay, the sealed divorce settlement, he said, was based on false assumptions by the state of California that fathers cannot handle parenting. He added that it was especially the case in the case of this father, he writes, a Negro from the islands who might just end up eating his children for breakfast, was the way he was portrayed in the divorce settlements. Nevertheless, he writes, I persisted, never giving up on the love for my children. Like his daughter, Dr. Harris tended to achieve distinction wherever he went. In 1956, the 18-year-old high school graduate received Jamaica's equivalent of the Rhodes Scholarship to attend the University College of the West Indies. He would go on to become Stanford's first Black professor of economics to receive tenure. His byline appeared in the most prestigious journals of economics in the world. He helped write and would eventually become Jamaica's enduring post-colonial economic policymaker. And in 2021, the same year, his daughter was sworn in as the nation's first female Black and Asian vice president. Dr. Harris received the Order of Merit, a high national honor bestowed by the Jamaican government that can only be held by 15 living individuals. He hailed from a well-off family of landowners and entrepreneurs in the Jamaican community known as Orange Hill, about a 60-mile drive northwest of Kingston. The Harris family owned a supermarket and other stores in nearby Brownstown, whose Irish founder, Hamilton Brown, held over 100 people in slavery and is believed in Harris family lore to be an ancestor. Even as a young student, classmates of Dr. Harris recalled him as brainy, driven. They wouldn't go so far as to call him nerdy, but they considered him serious. Now, this is an interesting part about his position at Stanford. Economists there said, wow, he was critical of kind of monopolies. This comes from Ann Kruger, a conservative economist and fellow Stanford professor at the time. He analyzed Marxist economic theory, but he certainly had more faith in government than some of us did. But among the people I knew as Marxist economists, He was not there. Now, he is offered and wants to do town halls with Kamala Harris, but she's decided not to incorporate that with him, not want to host those economic town halls to talk about improving the economy with him. Does this change your perspective on Kamala Harris? Do you feel like you know enough about her and her background to make this decision? Does it not affect her leadership that she's got a broken relationship with her father that's only 2 miles down the road? Or does that say something about her character? What do you think, Bill?
To me, I find the story interesting, and I don't really think that it matters. And that's the weird part is I've heard, and I'm sure our listeners have heard too, the charges that Kamala is obviously a bleeding lefty and this super communist and super Marxist because of dad. That the idea that whatever his philosophies, ideas that he had were obviously imparted to her, and she went forward as an automaton in order to carry out his wishes. And the reason that it doesn't hold for me is because I'm a parent. I got 4 kids. They don't believe what I do or what I say. They disagree with me all the time. And I have broken from ideas and thoughts and things that my parents believed as well. And so for me, everyone charts their own individual course. And I have known some people that are doing fantastic things in their life, and they came from severely broken homes where they were abused as kids, where they lived with parents that were both either functional drug addicts or functional alcoholics, parents that were absent all the time. They turned out to be wonderful people. And so I would hate to think that we would sit there and say,
do you think she came though from a rough spot?
No. This is what I'm saying is that I would hate to think that I would judge that person, that friend of mine's ability to succeed in life based on who their parents are. And that's what I feel we're doing when we go back to Kamala and say, well, what about this and her relationship with her father and who her father is? I want to judge who the person is now. And that's a cumulative of their experience.
But what if, and it seems pretty clear.
Yeah.
At least from one perspective, and we don't hear much from Kamala on this, that her dad wants reconciliation.
Yeah. And she may not. And that happens all the time. I mean, anybody that's gone through a breakup, one person is probably not as into the breakup as the other person is and may want a reconciliation. That happens all the time. And that may be for whatever reason, she just doesn't want to.
But a romantic relationship I see different than a father-daughter relationship.
Yeah, maybe. Not necessarily,
and
though.
The New York Times writes this. It says, after the divorce and custody battle, 2 friends of Miss Harris recall she told them of her acute sense of loss and how she internalized the bitterness of her mother.
Yeah. And again, if that's the reason that she doesn't want the relationship with her dad, okay. But again, I don't think this impacts her ability to do the job in any way, shape, or form. And that's the issue. Is I find it interesting and fascinating.
Think that
but no,
internalizing bitterness might affect the way the president thinks about things.
No, not unless. Well, here's the idea. The idea is she internalized the bitterness her mom had towards her father. So unless her father is walking into the White House, no. I don't see the crossing of the idea of, oh, she's bitter about this. This is what I hear in this is the idea of, oh my gosh, she might actually have a menstrual cycle when she's in the office, and that's going to change how she thinks because of her tiny lady brain.
There's nothing there about being a woman.
No. But what I'm saying is I'm saying because this thing happens that she can't possibly function outside of it. That's the relationship with her father. Okay, fine. Unless her father is involved in policy or serving in Congress or coming to talk to her and lobbying her about a bill or running another country, I don't see where that crosses over. I don't understand. And this is the reason why I say this. I don't look at that having any larger implications on who Kamala is, just like I don't take Fred Trump's views on economics.
Well, I'm not talking about her internalizing her dad's views at all, actually.
But I'm talking about, I don't take that, and I'm not putting who Fred Trump was on Donald. And I'm not. So I'm not going to take who Kamala's father is and put it on her. I'm going to look at her as a person. And if she doesn't have a good relationship with her father, okay, she doesn't have a good relationship with her father.
Do you think if Donald Trump had broken relationships with his family members, like close ones, I'm not talking about like second cousins, whatever, who cares? But immediate family members and refused to address them, didn't reconcile when other members wanted to reconcile, you don't think the media would be talking about that?
Well, media might be talking about it.
I
Sure,
think they would dive all over it.
But it doesn't. But here's the thing, though, is we already know he has a broken relationship with the family, with the brother's side of the family. His brother's side of the family doesn't like him. We see all the time with the, what is it, the niece?
Is it the niece?
Yeah, it comes out.
See, I don't care that.
But also
in that case,
son.
you do. You see it come out, and everybody talks about it.
Niece and nephew.
I found
but that's a broken. That's
one
a broken
article
relationship.
on this.
I know, but that's
in the New York Times.
I know, but
one article, and I think there's a larger issue here. So, one, if she's somebody that internalizes her bitterness, refuses to reconcile with somebody as important in her life as her father, and plus she has a 90% staff turnover in 4 years in her office, I do think it's a character issue. And when you're running to be the chief executive of the United States of America, we should explore these things.
So that's the connection you're trying to make. You're trying to make the connection of because she won't reconcile with dad, then she's a bad leader. That's where you're going with
I don't
this.
know.
That's how,
I'm raising the question about her own brokenness in her family, her refusal to want to reconcile, her willingness to internalize bitterness, her massive staff turnover that takes place. The fact that the media hasn't covered this, and in 2 weeks from today, we're going to choose her to possibly be the leader of the free world.
See, for me, the issue, it's the staff issue. We can make that an issue, but the relationship with the father, to me, is irrelevant. I don't see how that impacts anything she's going to do, and it's her choice. Is the idea of, and this is what I'm hearing, is I'm hearing this projection of, well, I think this is important, so it has to be important to her too. And I'm going to cast aspersions
very
on
important to her.
No. It's very important to you. If it was very important to her, she would have reconciled. It's not important to her. The reconciliation is not important to her.
She won't even talk about it. She won't address it.
Yeah.
I actually think this is a big deal to her.
But again, it could be a big deal to her that whatever the schism is between her and her father. Okay. But again, I fail to see how that imparts anything on her ability to be a leader. I have had numerous people be my bosses over the course of the year. I've never once been concerned.
Yeah, but we're not talking about leading a small business. We're not talking about leading a state.
I'm just
talking about leading the free world.
I know, and we're talking about leadership.
Yes.
And so I haven't cared at all about a broken relationship with anybody who's been in charge in any facility that I've ever worked in. And I'm not worried about it in the presidency. That there are so many other things I would be concerned about rather than a fractured relationship with a parent. To me, it's largely irrelevant. While interesting, I'm not saying it's not something to talk about, not something to address, or not something to read about. I find it interesting.
I will point this out, Bill. We've had this conversation
meaningful
about a Republican.
Yeah.
And family dynamics and brokenness there. And I was very consistent at that point that if there's brokenness in the family, it is indicative to me of failed leadership. Now, there's stuff that she can't control. I understand. I'm not talking about her parents divorcing. I'm not talking about any of that. But she is she's over the age of 50 now. Her father's 80. He lives 2 miles from her. He wants reconciliation. She is internalizing bitterness. I've been very fair, not just to Democrats, but to Republicans on this, that if your family is in turmoil, it's indicative of bigger problems. I'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971 or text the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. And why don't we know more about this? We're 2 weeks away from a historic election and possibly putting her into the position of the leader of the free world. Do you feel like you know enough about her background? And here's another thing that I found interesting in one of these articles. Bill Clinton, absent dad. Barack Obama, absent dad. Kamala Harris, absent dad. I don't know about Joe Biden, but that's a fascinating streak in itself. Give me a call. Would love to talk to you. Hey, I want to talk to you first, though, about QC Kinetics. You don't have to keep living with that joint pain. Real lasting relief is possible with help from QC Kinetics. People here are getting their lives back, getting their mobility back, thanks to QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in cellular therapies that can revitalize your joints. I'm talking about advanced regenerative medicine, using your own body's healing properties, highly concentrated and carefully placed in your achy joint. Back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain. These are cutting-edge treatments that require no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. It's a quick in-office procedure that can get you moving again. These protocols have been developed by medical professionals and under the leadership of Dr. Mitchell Scheinkup, a former orthopedic surgeon and a pioneer in critical regenerative medicine. Listen, is arthritic pain keeping you from doing the things you love? Pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder? You owe it to yourself to learn more. Call QC Kinetics today for a free consultation. 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986 with locations in Aurora, Superior, Highlands Ranch, and Colorado Springs. Man, those text messages are pouring in. Give us a call. Would love to talk to you. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
People are speaking out against Kamala Harris after a pair of Christian students were mocked by the vice president and her supporters at a rally at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse last week when they shouted, "Christ is King and Jesus is Lord." Watch.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
The students, both juniors at the school, said it happened when Harris started talking about abortion rights. The pair was shoved by some of Kamala's supporters as they were being kicked out of the venue. Grant Beth and Luke Pulaski said they were at the rally to do God's work. According to authorities, at least 7 people were killed Saturday when part of a ferry dock collapsed on Georgia's Sapelo Island, where crowds had gathered for a fall celebration. Overall, 20 people were forced into the water. The ages of those who died ranged from 73 to 93. 8 people were taken to hospitals, at least 6 of them with critical injuries, and crews from the U.S. Coast Guard, the McIntosh County Fire Department, the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, and others were searching the water, according to Natural Resources spokesperson Tyler Jones. A gangway at the dock collapsed, sending people plunging into the water, Jones said. A team of engineers and construction specialists were on site early Sunday to start investigating why the walkway failed.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. What is with Kamala Harris and her broken relationship with her dad? They never mention it. They don't talk about it. She hardly talks about him at the RNC. With Donald Trump, I know pretty much just about anybody he's ever had a relationship with. How those relationships go, people dive into all that. He has a family member come out against him. Well, goodness, they publish New York Times best-selling books. Kamala Harris's dad lives just 2 miles away from her. They don't talk. Why is that? And why does the media cover it? She's likely to be the leader of the free world. So we're fine ripping into Donald Trump's personal life, but not Kamala Harris's? What's going on there? Let's go to the phone lines. Jay Sterling. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, you guys. You got a little cream in your coffee or got a little calm in your coffee? Or caramel?
Or as Bernie Sanders says, Carmela.
Okay. Well, yeah, I had to make a funny off the bat. Thanks, you guys, and good morning. You know, the thing is, she's never built anything, and that's why we all like Trump, because he's a businessman. As us farmers or whatever have you, I don't care what business you're running or operating. You have to have a plan to do your production of any business, of anything in life. She has no idea where the country's going to go. She can't give any details of anything. Now, if you're going to run on top of the free world, I mean, you better have some details. I mean, you're not just talking about running a farm, running a McDonald's. You're not talking about just running a restaurant. You're talking about running the free world, which all of us prosper off of. You know, so therefore, if there's no details, she makes no sense. It'd be like talking to a second grader that never even went to second grade.
Yeah, well, Jay, that Trump doesn't have necessarily any details either, but I understand what you're saying about a businessman and saying that you prefer Trump over a businessman. But I have a question for you about Trump and his business. And this is one I've been pondering for a while, and I haven't yet brought it to the show. So you're going to be the first one that we're going to try this out with is, in your experience as a farmer, have you ever short paid a vendor? Purposefully paid less. Okay. What would you think of someone that short paid you on a contract?
I would no longer do business with them.
Donald Trump routinely short pays his vendors. He's been sued by them, and it's been proven in court.
Routinely?
Yes.
How many times?
I can think of 12, 13. But again,
out of his entire business career?
But again, here's the thing. How many times at the Western Conservative Summit did you short pay a vendor?
No, we never did. But
okay.
Those were contract disputes among a guy who owns tons of businesses in 12, 13 contract disputes.
Those are the ones that I can think off the top of my head. I don't know if that's all. I'm not saying this is dispositive of everything that he has done. But what I'm telling you is...
Use the word routinely.
Hang on a sec. This is a person that short pays vendors. And those vendors have had to go to court.
I see it as contract disputes.
I know, but those vendors had it. Hang on a second. Hang on. I understand that Jeff sees it as a contract dispute, but the issue is they agreed on a price. And then Donald Trump decides on his own to pay less than that.
I don't know the details of those cases.
I will see if I can look some of them up for you because I didn't know I was going to have to bring those up. But the idea is
you brought it up.
No, I brought it. No,
yeah, you ought to get on that.
Hang on. I said I didn't know I was going to bring this up on the show today. I prefaced that. I said I didn't know this is the direction I was going to go today. I haven't brought it to the show yet. Okay. I was open and honest about it, but the issue is he short pays vendors, and we're talking about him being a good businessman. I'm sorry, but I don't trust a businessman that short pays vendors. That's it. And we're talking about the way he does business. That's all I'm saying is it's an interesting point that we say we want someone that's a businessman, but we look at someone that seems to do something unethical inside a business, something that Jay said he wouldn't trust that businessman anymore.
Okay, well, but what has Kamala ever built? What has she built of anything? Anything? She hasn't even she never even built anything to short fund anybody.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure. But again, I disagree with that the country has to be run like a business either. I don't think that it's possible to run the country like a business because they're not the same thing. Running a government is not the same as a business. And here's the idea: when you go into business, you get to choose what your product is, and you also get to choose your audience and your consumer base. You don't get to do that in government. You have to serve everybody, and you have to serve everybody all the products they want. So it's not, you don't get the same choices you have in business. You can decide to not do business with someone. In government, you don't necessarily get that choice.
Okay, but
like people that are like the public schools. The
overall circle, they're not going to get, the government's not going to get any more taxes if us businesses aren't raising money to take our taxes. If they can tell you, okay, fine, I'm going to tax you, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that to you, I'm going to do that to you. But she doesn't know what it costs us when they start raising taxes and giving our money away to somebody else. Because I've never worked for a poor person. Are you right now working for a poor person?
I've worked for poor people, but the issue being this though is that
not for very long.
But hang on, but saying that she's never run a business also though doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't understand the problems from being an employee.
She can't explain nothing.
I disagree with you on that one, Jay. I disagree.
Tell me one thing. Tell me one thing that she can do for a small business or a farmer. Tell me one thing positive that she has ever said that she can do for
She's talking about a $25,000 tax write-off for people to start a small business, up from $5,000. That would be something that would be good for a small businessman. But hang on,
it's a write-off. You have to make money.
Yeah, I know.
So the startup fee, I mean,
but right now, Jay, right now it's $5,000. She wants to move it to $25,000. That would be positive for someone trying to start a small business.
Yeah, but where's that money coming from? Where's that $25,000 coming from?
Hang on, Jay, you asked me.
No, where's it coming from?
You asked me to provide an example of something she was going to do positive for a small business.
Okay,
there it is.
But where's she taking the money from?
What's the positive thing for Trump that he's doing for the small business?
The positive thing is that she's helping out a first-time startup. I got that. Right. But where is she taking the money from? Your tax, when you get your paycheck, that money is coming right out of your paycheck to give to somebody else.
Everything the government does comes out of our taxes. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. So even a plan that Donald Trump would have would also come out of our taxes.
So you would like to vote for somebody that's going to take more money out of your paycheck and give it to somebody else?
Yeah,
Jay,
I don't have problems with that in certain areas.
Good conversation. I appreciate it. Jay from Sterling, his line will be open 303-696-1971. Sorry, Billy. Who do we have next? My call. Tony Littleton. Good morning, Tony.
Hey, good morning. So many things come up. I was really going to call about the election, but this thing about short paying vendors. Okay, he doesn't pay attorneys. Just start right there.
Well, then why would any attorney work for him if he doesn't pay attorneys?
He believes this comes as news to you, which is kind of surprising. But this kind of goes to Kamala Harris. It's like today you learn that her dad wants to reunite with her, and you think that this is a big split. It's been over 50 years, and you acknowledged you've been hearing nothing but, oh, she's got the Marxist, he taught her Marxism. She was 5 when he left. He hasn't been in her life for 50 years, and now he pops up and he wants to get back together.
That's not true. I mean, that's not true. He wrote when she won everything from attorney general on up to Senate to vice president, he outreached to her. She didn't want to meet with him. Do you think that's a problem?
She went, no, not at all. I would be far more focused on the people. If you want to know about the person,
Yeah.
Look at the people they're associated with and that raised them and that influenced their lives. So, her mom. And there's, there's a really good.
She has internalized, according to her friends, internalized bitterness towards her dad. And he wants to reconcile. She doesn't want to reconcile. You don't think that's a problem with somebody that's going to lead the free world?
Look, no, absolutely not. If anything, there's a frontline documentary that you can watch on YouTube about both of them, about the race between Trump and Kamala Harris. And you'll learn a lot about both of them, things that you don't seem to know. And I don't want to try to use up this time, but it's not a big surprise that she's not close to him. He left them early on and he was in no influence. She had other people in addition to her mom that were influencing her lives. Now, Trump, on the other hand, he has huge divisions in his family, and the split between he and his brother was acrimonious as hell. And the two people that influenced Trump more than
the brother
anybody
that died
else,
of alcoholism.
Yes.
No, they were not acrimonious. They were. That was one of the biggest impacts. He loved his older brother, and it was his alcoholism that has led Donald Trump to never touch alcohol.
You know very little about, and it's because of what your sources are. There are many documentaries about that relationship. He even pulled back the guy's insurance money.
How many documentaries are on Kamala Harris and her dad?
There's one very good one that you can go.
There's
watch.
Many on Donald Trump and his brother.
Yes.
And Kamala Harris has one on her dad. I think you proved my point. Tony, thanks for the call.
You're trying to
appreciate it. That's one of the points I have. In 2 weeks, we're going to be electing this person to become the president of the United States. And like Tony just said, you can go watch all these documentaries on Donald Trump and his brother, apparently. One on Kamala Harris and her dad. He wants to reconcile. She's so full of bitterness. She doesn't want to reconcile with him. And you think that's good for somebody that's going to negotiate with other countries? Just raising the question. All right. Did you know that last year, over 49% of the homes listed did not sell with the real estate agent who took the initial listing? This cost home sellers thousands of dollars in low offers and painful holding costs. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams have a track record of selling homes fast and get their home sellers 6.1% more money on average, netting their sellers $30,500 more in their pocket. They do this using their proven proprietary system and guarantees. Go with the team that doesn't just make empty promises, but can actually provide proof of their experience and track record of getting homes sold for top dollar. Gay Ribble and the Power Home team is so confident in the service they provide and the results they get for you that if you're not happy, you can cancel at any time at no cost to you. This is their cancellation promise. Call 833-301-SOLD or go to gayasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Text message lines that are great today. 2469. Jeff is really thin-skinned. Cutting Tony off there. 8422 responded, Tony should write a book on Trump derangement syndrome. He'll find any way possible to bash Trump, all while thinking it makes himself sound intelligent on the radio. We got both sides of that call, Tony. Tony, we love you.
Great.
Thank you for the call.
Love
We were
Tony.
just out of time. Let's go to Melissa real quick. Melissa, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning. The car in front of me has no license plate. Anyway, so I was going to comment in favor of a successful business person running the country because the decisions that they're used to making affect their own pocketbook, and they're also responsible for their employees' safety. So they're used to dealing with OSHA, and they're accountable. The politician is really just spending taxpayer dollars, and they can sue somebody on the taxpayer dime. And anyway, I feel like the business owner would be the best.
Yeah. The problem I've got, and again, the thing I just brought up, and we can get back to it later, is the idea that is Donald Trump necessarily that ethical businessman? Is that someone you would trust in the office because he short pays vendors? That's an issue.
And I'm going, there might just be contract disputes. That happens, but we'll talk more about this. P. Diddy's up next.
Thanks, Melissa.
Not the actual one, but we're going to be talking about him. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
It is 8 in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado, on this Tuesday, October 22nd. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're off and running. Living in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. The Dan Caplis Law Text line is 720-819-5115. When you text us, it comes right here into the studio. Bill and I can read it there. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson. Rory O'Neill's going to join us later in the hour. NBC national correspondent Sean Combs, Diddy, Puff Diddy, Love, goes by lots of names. In fact, when you read the indictment, a good portion of it is just his aliases. He's the target of a new round of lawsuits by men and women who claim he abused them, some when they were as young as 13 years old. Meanwhile, it appears other celebrities may be targets as well. Rory O'Neill is going to give us the latest on these allegations against P. Diddy. I went through and read the federal indictment against him too, and these freak-offs are rather freaky.
Yes, they are. Yeah. And probably legal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But I guess Billy, you're in the music industry.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to say this is par for the course for the music industry, but rock stars are known to act a certain way.
Yeah.
It seemed to be that P. Diddy gets in trouble for organizing them, trafficking the women across lines, which were he'd throw these big parties. They were inappropriate parties that would last days. He would drug people, pay them, traffic them. So is this rock star lifestyle gone awry? We can dive into this, and I'd love to get your perspective as someone who works in the music industry. Has this been going on for a while? Why did people allow it to go on? A lot of questions around this. And how serious is the abuse? Because the guy leading a lot of these personal lawsuits seems like a guy cut out of a central casting for personal injury attorney. Doesn't look like the most honest guy out there. So how much of this is real? And is this par for the course for the music industry? Are they really this bad? We'll get into that and more. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 43 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 75 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
And do you see any parallels?
I do not see any parallels between
I'm talking about perception.
Officers and agents.
I'm talking about perception.
I do not see a parallel between what is constitutionally mandated as it relates to enforcing the law.
Are you aware that there's a perception?
I see no.
Are you aware that there's a perception?
That puts ICE in the same category as the KKK. Is that what you're asking me?
One of Kamala Khan's worst moments ever. One of many. Calling ICE the KKK. One of the most ridiculous things she's ever said. Don't forget that.
Yep, that, and then the time that there was a judge up for consideration before her when she was on the Senate Judiciary.
Yes.
And she goes, are you part of that Catholic organization called the Knights of Columbus? Oh! Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, she forgot the part of the Constitution where there's no religious test. But, you know.
Right. Oh, she was horrible in that. Man, I remember listening to that on the radio or my phone, and I wanted to throw the phone as far as I could. Oh, man.
I think she's bitter, man. I think there's lots of evidence out there. She's a bitter person, bitter towards her father, bitter towards her employees.
Dangerous.
90% turnover.
Dangerous. I'm telling you, no, you are correct.
We're going to end up in a war because she's bitter at somebody.
Thank you. And she doesn't know history. I mean, remember when she described where Ukraine was, for example. I mean, there are so many things. 2 weeks away from Election Day. DJT in North Carolina on Monday. to tour hurricane damage in Asheville. He's scheduled to hold a rally in Greensboro later today.
We're going to have our country back. We're going to grab our country. We're going to take it back. We're a nation in decline. We're not going to be a nation in decline for much longer, that I can tell you. And we're going to make America great again. Very simple. It's a very simple slogan. It's the greatest movement in the history of our country. We're going to make America great again.
Lara Trump, yes, it is Lara, not Laura Trump, running the campaign on with Charlemagne the God. Charlemagne the God. And, you know, this is how all this garbage starts when you talk about weirdos. But anyway, Charlemagne has one of the biggest radio show podcasts in the country. Here's Charlemagne with Lara Trump.
I agree with you. The border is a disaster. I feel like the border is a bipartisan issue, though, because
really? Okay, yeah, it is a bipartisan issue. The left wants it wide open and the right does not.
the border has been terrible under multiple administrations.
Well, we had the
Oh, that's so simplistic, idiot. The left wants it open, the right wants it closed.
lowest border crossings when Donald Trump was in the White House that we've ever had.
Yes, but I still feel like it's going to take some bipartisan legislation, you know, to actually fix things at the border. You can't do
Totally
executive
agree.
orders. You can't do that. So how come they can't come to terms on that? And why did Donald Trump shoot down what they said was one of the most comprehensive bipartisan border bills that
If you actually
they ever
read,
created?
if you actually
Bipartisan, okay, here's the thing. The left wants it open, the right wants it closed. If you want bipartisan, the God, Charlemagne, you need to close the border. That means the left, Democrats, need to agree with that. Charlemagne.
read what was in there, there was like $60 billion for Ukraine. There were so many issues with that. It would allow 1.8 million illegal immigrants into our country a year. I mean, it was nonsense.
Yes, it was. Nice job, Lara. Kamala Khan will be lying in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania today. Around 8 million people are getting at least another 6 months break on repaying their federal student loans. Those eligible are enrolled in the Biden administration's SAVE plan. The Department of Education said on Monday that the enrollees will be put in an interest-free forbearance. The pause in repaying comes as the SAVE plan is being challenged in court by Republican attorneys general who accused President Biden of trying to find a loophole to forgive student debt after a broader debt cancellation plan was struck down by the Supreme Court this year. You may remember that. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel, hoping to restart ceasefire talks to stop the fighting in Gaza and Lebanon. It's Blinken's 11th visit to the region since the war in Gaza began. How's about just allowing Israel to do what they need to do to restore peace? A woman in Fort Collins was shot after trying to stop two men trying to break into her car outside her home. She was struck in the leg and recovering. The two males were wearing dark-colored clothing, hoodies, and backpacks. They're considered armed and dangerous as police ask for the public's health. An Auraria police officer who was shot in the arm on Monday morning while working on campus is recovering. Two officers tried to stop a man for trespassing, but he ran off. When they found him later, police say he resisted arrest. Here we go again, resisting arrest. He pulls out a gun. He was eventually tracked down and now faces an attempted murder charge. Denver skyline could look a lot differently by 2050. The Denver City Council approved a rezoning measure on Monday that will allow redevelopment of the area around Ball Arena. Kroenke Sports and Entertainment wants to create a new neighborhood around the arena, including new skyscrapers, housing, retail space, and parks. That should be exciting.
For illegal immigrants?
Yes. Yes, for illegal immigrants.
Is that
and
why Mayor
drug
Mike
addicts.
approved it?
Yeah, can we put in there we don't want to see needles and excrement on the streets? Oh my goodness. All right. So this should be really fun and shiny and really cool. The council and then the Kroenkes will love it. They're just going to keep on raking it in. The council also approved a measure that will allow the development to have buildings that are higher than the current view plane in exchange for new affordable housing. The agreements also led to a promise by the company to keep the Nuggets and the Avalanche in Denver, by golly, by 2050. Love it. It's going to look so good. So many dark shadows in the Lodo streets with those big skyscrapers now. It's going to be awesome. 42 in part, and I think half the skyscrapers are still empty in downtown Denver, right? I think. I'm not sure. 42, right? They're all vacant. 42 in Parker, 40 in Superior, 43 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It is Tuesday.
What Kamler is trying to do now.
Whoa, Carmela. I forgot to say that, Jeff. So Carmela. All right, let's go, Carmela. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Sunny, mild, nice October weather. Will be in the mid-70s today. Fair cool tonight, low to mid-40s, and mid-70s on Wednesday. Might get a little breezy in the afternoons. It will be cooler Thursday as the front passes through. Highs will be 60s, brisk northwest winds, 60s Friday, 60s and 70s and dry, and mild through the weekend and into Monday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're going to dive into a weird space, Billy.
Yeah.
These pop stars, these rock stars. P. Diddy brought up on a lot of charges, not only federally, but all these personal lawsuits coming out against him as well. Bill, from your perspective as somebody who works in the music industry, and let me give you a sense of what some of these charges are. This comes from the United States Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York. Sean Combs charged in Manhattan federal court with sex trafficking and other federal offenses. The U.S. State's Attorney for the Southern District of New York making the claim that from 2008 to present, Combs has led a criminal enterprise that existed to facilitate his abuse and exploitation of women, to protect his reputation, to conceal his conduct. As part of this criminal enterprise, Combs, along with other members and associates of the enterprise, committed crimes including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Among other things, Combs' sexual abuse of women includes causing them to engage in frequent day-long sexual activity with male commercial sex workers, some of whom were transported over state lines. These events, which Combs referred to as freak-offs, were elaborate sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, and often electronically recorded to ensure participation in the freak-offs. Combs used violence, intimidation, and leveraged his power over victims, power he obtained through obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, exploiting his financial support to them, threatening to cut off the same, and controlling their careers. Combs also threatened his victims, including by threatening to expose the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of freak-offs if the women didn't comply with his demands. I mean, these things were like organized. They put together like entire multi-day events and would buy all the materials for it and have cleaning operations, and he'd record them. And then, I mean, is this, I've got a few questions. Number one, how did this, why was this allowed to go on for so long? Since 2008, and in some cases, even earlier on some of the personal lawsuits. And then two, is this happening regularly in the music industry from your perspective?
No, it doesn't happen regularly. That's why it's unusual. This is not something that regularly happens. And he's running this like a mob business. I got two names for you to talk about things as far as, how come this continues to happen. R. Kelly, Jeffrey Epstein. Many of the same type of things.
So
but yet,
like famous people?
Well, no, just the issue being how did Jeffrey Epstein manage to do this
Yeah,
with his
for so
Lolita
long?
Island for so long? How did R. Kelly manage to keep this?
So famous people. I mean, they're famous people,
it's
money and power.
Money and power.
Yeah.
Money, power, and leverage. That's exactly it. And that's why Diddy wanted to record the parties, because now he has leverage over you. Because now he has the ability to say, you can't come at me. You can't do X, Y, or Z because I have you on tape doing this. So you don't want me to release that.
Why don't we ever
It's power.
see, not the tapes themselves? I don't need to see that.
Yeah.
But the people involved with this.
Oh,
why do they get to hide?
That's the lawsuits are all involved in that. And then part of it is because of the power that Diddy has. And if we go back a little bit, okay, we've got to almost jump back into the 90s for some of this to understand the layers, because this is Sean Puffy Combs and Bad Boy Records, which is the East Coast. Because again, you had the West Coast, East Coast sort of beef,
Tupac,
more or less.
right.
Yeah. But Tupac's Death Row. Pac's over with Death Row Records,
On
which
the
is
West
West Coast. Yeah. So that's, NWA, that's Snoop, those are those guys. And Bad Boy has Biggie Smalls. That's basically the best rapper that comes out of Bad Boy. But they also were focused, and again, it wasn't necessarily a beef, but they were focused on different things, because Death Row is more into the rap and almost that gang type of a scene, where Bad Boy is more club focused. They're looking more for things that are played inside of clubs. So the actual genres they're going after, R&B is actually larger inside of Bad Boy Records, in my opinion, than their rappers. Their rappers didn't get to a lot of heights, but you get into Bad Boy Records with their R&B, and you get people like Mary J. Blige and Jodeci. You get some people that have some really, strong careers that come out of it. But that's partly because the direction they were going. And there have been a number of performers over the years that have been upset with Diddy taking their stuff. Like, there are a couple of guys, and again, names wouldn't mean anything to anybody listening, that firmly say that a lot of the hits that came out of Bad Boy, especially in the second half, where Diddy is organizing a lot of these freak-offs and doing a lot of these big parties, he wasn't in the studio. And there are two creators that are like, listen, these beats came from me. These beats came out of mine.
I never saw him outside of the one he did about
that's the only
big
popular.
Guy.
Yeah.
Who's,
you're talking about Biggie Smalls?
Biggie Smalls. Yeah.
Biggie.
So,
yeah.
And I'm not a music guy, so I'm going off of me being a high school kid listening to this.
And Biggie was something else. I could tell stories
those
on Biggie. Something else.
And well, what?
The way that he worked,
Really?
the way that he worked, the way that he lyrically put things together. One of my favorite stories with Biggie is a producer that was working with him at the time, and says that Biggie's sitting there in the room, and he's just listening to the beat, and the DJ that created the beat, and they're running. He's just like, run it, man, run it again, run it again. He sits there, and he's smoking weed, having a little bit of a drink with him, and he sits there, and he says about an hour, sits there, and he goes, "Okay, man, I'm set. Let's go." And he walks into the studio, gets behind the microphone, and lays down the whole track. No pen, no paper, no nothing. Biggie just sat there for an hour, came up with the flow, went behind the mic, and threw it. That is sick. That is ridiculous.
And I never remember P.
Ridiculous
Diddy
talent.
being talked about like that.
But he's
Like he was just kind of around.
Yeah, Diddy did he was guesting on a lot of things, but again, he's the mobster up top. He's running everything else.
Really?
And he's and these freak offs are the way that he keeps everybody in line, the way that he controls them. We can go into there's stuff that, there's alleged abuse of Justin Bieber that's involved in this. Because Biebs was 15 at the time,
right?
and he just goes off and spends the whole weekend with him. And if you go back to that time, and you can see the
videos, he looks terrible.
Yes, and Bieber looks terrified at times from it. And there's a number of those, and a lot of the girl groups that were coming up. There were tons of rumors about the abuse going on when he's putting together.
Was he
these groups.
so powerful that you had to do that?
Inside of his record label, yeah. Because again, he has access and he can promote it. He also can blacklist you in certain cases. He can send out the word that no, don't do business with them. Don't do business with them, because it's just like in regular business. Same thing. If you have a large, somewhat monopolistic group that controls one thing, you only have 2 or 3 providers, which is kind of what you had in the music industry for this genre. Then they exercise enormous power and pressure, and especially on smaller people coming up. You need to be a part of the big club, otherwise you're not going to get the attention from the record labels. You're not going to get the attention from the radio stations. You're not going to get attention to the clubs. You come in and say, "I'm part of Bad Boy." The DJ is going to take a look at what you've got and possibly spin it on the floor. You walk in and say, "Hey, I'm just coming up, I'm doing this." The DJ is not going to listen to it at all. And so the Bad Boy gave you that reputation, but it's awful. Yeah.
But you're saying that was only Diddy.
Yeah, that's Diddy. Yeah,
I mean,
Death Row.
and
Suge's a gangster, but that's more gang stuff.
They weren't compromising people. They weren't engaging in these types of freak offs.
Not the freak offs, but they were compromising people in different ways. Suge was doing it from the old school gangster stuff. He's doing it through drugs and organized crime.
Was he the one that hit somebody with his car?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Suge Knight. Yeah. He's straight up gangster, straight up gangster. And there are great, and there's some great stories that they're older. Snoop tells wonderful stories of this time coming up about beefs between the different gangs, about how I think is it Tupac and I think Nas, because I think Nas at that time is running with Bad Boy, and they have a beef inside of a casino in Vegas at one point, and Snoop sits there and he's like, yeah, he goes, because Snoop's a gangster. That's where he was in prison before he became a rapper, and he was in there, and he's a banger.
I heard some of these guys weren't, like Tupac wasn't at all.
No, Tupac wasn't in that. No, Tupac was incredibly gifted,
he was like a poet, artist. And then all of a sudden decides to become a gangster.
Yeah, dude was incredibly gifted. He actually went to a magnet school in New York,
right?
For arts. So but no, Snoop was a gangster, and he's talking about their Tupac's crews running up, and here comes Nas and his guys, and they're all armed, and Snoop's like, he's like, my gang radar is going off immediately. He's like, something's gonna go down, and he talked about how Nas was able to quell the beef with Pac, and how he let Pac believe that he got one over him, and Snoop's like, no, Nas won the conversation. There wasn't a fight, but they had this like dueling conversation back and forth, and he said Pac walks away going, yeah, I punked him, and Snoop's like, oh man, he just let you walk. He could have done something much worse. It's like, you're walking away because of the grace of Nas, not because you talked him down. It was interesting to see, but that's what was going on between the camps at that time. It was, that's why you get the shooting of Biggie inside of LA. That's why you get the shooting of Pac. It's because of this beef that is going on. Yeah.
Gabe texted in, Suge Knight hung Vanilla Ice over a balcony to get paid.
Yeah, that would not. Yeah, I'm not 100% familiar with the story, but I wouldn't put it beyond. That is absolutely what Suge Knight does. That's his MO.
I mean, how corrupt and broken is all of this? I worked in Hollywood. I did ministry in Hollywood for a few years, and the people I worked with were the folks that were like the lead actors in their high school plays, thought they could make it in Hollywood. It didn't happen. So they're trying to figure out their life. And that was where most of my ministry, I worked at Bel Air Presbyterian Church. And that's who it was, like trying to figure out, okay, it didn't work out. It didn't happen. I wasn't part of the ministering to Justin Bieber or Britney Spears or anything like that. But now you're reading all these stories about, like, it is like Sodom and Gomorrah in these places where they are, I mean, massive freak offs, videos in the indictment, 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
Yeah, it's spooky. Yeah. But again, that he was running it again, much like the mob. And that's what it was.
But
he had gotten to a point where he's controlling
it. Is one thing, but like, this is like crazy sexually promiscuous.
Oh yeah. Now it's not,
and everybody's hooking up with everybody, and young, old, gay, straight. They're all
and this is not universal as far as the music industry. It doesn't operate this way. But when you have record labels that can consolidate power in certain ways, then abuses like this take place. I'm not saying that then big, huge, wild sexual parties happen, but abuse of the artists does happen based on the power the label has. And that's one of the things in the industry right now is
so godless to me.
Labels
Sorry, as a pastor, I'm like, this is just crazy.
Labels are falling apart right now in part because of it. I mean, I had 3 really, really good friends at Atlantic Records lose their jobs in the last 2 weeks. Really, Atlantic Records let go 200 people. I mean, a music producer that is fantastic is now on the streets. I know a guy that books and has done great things with tours. He's on the streets as well. And we were talking last week.
I mean, the whole industry seems godless. It seems like it's being exposed. I hope this results in changes, and we can make a difference there in getting this straightened out. Because if you're a young person going into these industries, my God,
here's the place.
The
to
ways
look at.
You're going to be abused, like what they did to Justin Bieber.
Oh yeah, there is a nice light inside of the music industry right now, and for my money, that's Nashville. Nashville is doing a great job cultivating
even
the music
you don't think
scene.
that there's problems in country music?
Oh no, there is absolutely, but I'm saying it's not at these levels. And Nashville's is doing a really good job creating a community that is bringing people and allowing them to write and allowing them to branch out. Tim Montana is a great example. He wrote for country artists for a number of years. Has just dropped 3 months ago. Dropped his He dropped his debut album, a fantastic album, really, really unique. And I won't go into the story, but a really unique guitarist. Hardy is another one that wrote for some of the biggest country stars on the planet. And now he's dropped his second rock album recently, his latest single, Psycho. Yeah. And so they're allowing that to branch out. And that's, Taylor Swift came out of that writing world.
And it seems like because her parents were pretty involved, like her dad probably stopped a lot of this crap from happening.
And that's part of it too, is how, and again,
why would you send your 15-year-old Justin Bieber to a freak off?
Oh, there's no way. And I don't think they knew. They just knew that he was going to go spend the weekend with this major record producer. Holy crap. This is experience. He's going to, they didn't look at it as, they didn't think it was going to the party. But you look on the other end, and Britney Spears' parents have been, the divorce, but really controlling in her life. And that
try to stop. To try to stop this?
Well, no, but
because it seems like it's gotten worse since that.
Yeah,
happened.
but in some of it, the control allowed her to spiral out of control because she didn't have control in her life. So some of that was the pressure that was created by the parents being overly controlling, and that's part of it. Yeah, so it's happening on both ends, and it's crazy to think about.
Well, coming up here in just a second, we're going to be joined by Rory O'Neill, NBC national correspondent. A whole new round of lawsuits coming against Sean P. Diddy Combs. What are those about? Oh, my goodness. America needs Jesus. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
The Associated Press is being called out for publishing blatantly biased news headlines when it comes to the age and mental acuity of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. 4 days ago, the AP ran a story with the headline reading, "If he wins next month's election, Donald Trump would be the oldest person in U.S. history to be elected president." Yet the 78-year-old Republican nominee refuses to disclose new details about his physical or mental well-being. Meanwhile, the same publication back in July, 4 months after Biden won enough delegates to clinch the 2024 Democrat nomination, wrote this headline, "Biden at 81, sharp and focused, but sometimes confused and forgetful." Many are now saying the people are waking up and turning away from both the Democrat Party and the legacy media. In fact, a recent poll by Gallup revealed that trust in the media is at record lows. Some 200,000 letter carriers have reached a tentative contract deal with the U.S. Postal Service that includes backdated pay raises and a promise to provide workers with air-conditioned trucks. The new agreement still needs to be ratified by union members. It runs through November 2026. Letter carriers have been working without a new contract since their old one expired back in May of 2023. Since then, they have continued working under the same terms of the old contract. Both the union and the Postal Service welcome the agreement. Among other things, the contract increases top pay and reduces the amount of time it takes new workers to reach that level.
In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$100 gift cards from Sean D's Persian Grill in the Denver Tech Center. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Dude, this was the country song of the summer.
Oh,
I loved it.
It crossed over. It made it over on
AYGO regularly.
But it was also on hits, and it hit Hot AC as well.
Nice.
Yeah. This one, yeah, this is still, I want to say this is, I'm not sure. I want to say it's still in the top 5 on the Hot AC list
I think there's good space right now for black artists in country.
I know it's in top 10.
Darius Rucker, Shabuzi.
Yeah,
some of those guys.
Yeah, there are a couple others that are out there that deserve more attention. Yeah.
Kane Brown, one of them.
Yeah, Kane Brown's
well, joining us on the Jeff and Bill show, Rory O'Neill, NBC national correspondent. Sean Combs is the target of a new round of lawsuits by men and women who claimed he abused them, some when they were as young as 13 years old. Meanwhile, it appears other celebrities may be targets as well. To give us the latest on these allegations, because this is big and could it really bring down a lot of stars, is Rory O'Neill, national correspondent with NBC Radio. Rory, thanks so much for being on the program.
Yeah, good morning, guys.
So we know there's a federal indictment that came out. Now you have a whole series of personal lawsuits that are popping up as well, right?
Right. So Diddy is currently being held on sex trafficking charges filed by the federal government. And since then now, we've seen a couple dozen civil lawsuits filed. And there's the Texas attorney who's sort of handling a lot of this litigation. He says there could be as many as 120 civil lawsuits brought against Combs by people who claim that they were unwilling participants in some of these freak-offs, I think they call them, these sex parties. Essentially, they say that they were drugged against their will or knowledge and were victimized, or that Diddy was manipulating them as these typically young people who are trying to start careers.
Now, I imagine as a famous person, he ends up with a lot of lawsuits that happen anyways, people looking to see money. But as I was reading through some of the personal lawsuits as well as the federal indictment, the federal indictment provides a lot of basis for these personal lawsuits, right?
Right. And they complement each other. You know, one of the suits in this case involves a now woman, but she says she was 13 years old and says she was sexually assaulted after an award show in New York back in 2000 at an after party. And then other men have come forward to say that they had aspiring careers. They were trying to get in the music business, and that they were molested and otherwise abused or drugged at parties and taken advantage of. So it's a broad range of allegations, again, for men and women. But when you get in these cases involving underage people, there's a whole different kind of criminal element that comes into play.
Well, and I would hope so. Now, look, the indictment of Harvey Weinstein, I think, kind of shook up the film industry. And, you know, this guy was going on doing this to women for years, and people knew about it, but they never really said anything because of the power that he had. Could these indictments, these lawsuits, shake loose this type of behavior in the music industry and just say that this is not acceptable anymore?
Well, I also don't think it's going to surprise many people. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? But in this case, it's sex, drugs, and hip hop. But to your point, yes, I think Harvey Weinstein started this. Jeffrey Epstein may have been a middle point, although we still don't know a lot of the allegations there. And here we know that there are several other A-list celebrities who are also involved in some of these allegations. But there also may be videotape evidence, which is something else I'm sure that publicists across Hollywood are very concerned about, trying to make sure that some of these videos never see the light of day, at least not in the public eye. That may depend as to whether or not Diddy takes some sort of a plea deal here. Again, he's currently facing federal sex trafficking charges. It's also interesting that he's the only person who's been charged. That should be a red flag for Diddy, because it looks like a lot of the people who were organizing these sex workers to come to many of these parties are now cooperating with the federal investigators and taking plea deals in order to avoid prosecution.
Talking with Rory O'Neill, NBC national correspondent. Now, Rory, you mentioned other stars could be indicted here. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, right. There have been a lot of allegations that have surfaced. Some names have been floated around, people, celebrities that were known to hang out with Diddy. So until we get some more confirmation, I don't want to throw any names under the bus here. But they have been identified as A-list celebrities that we would all know. And again, a lot of the evidence may be on video, which may or may not ever see the public be released to the public.
Yeah, that was an interesting part in the indictment. They talk about electronic recordings over and over and over again. So they must have a tremendous amount of evidence. And gosh, we'll have to continue to watch this. Now, what are the next steps in this? The federal court case is in March, I believe, or sometime early next year. But how about all these individual lawsuits?
Yeah, so the trial date for the federal criminal case is currently set for May 5th. I would not expect that to hold, but probably gets kicked down the road a bit later because that would be relatively fast. And again, there is still the opportunity for a plea deal in this case if the feds are interested. It sounds like they have the goods here for a complete trial. But look, Diddy is 54 years old. Maybe he wants to negotiate some sort of a plea that gives him a chance at being released. And maybe he can flip and help the feds in another case. All that's out there. The civil cases, they would certainly take a while. It wouldn't happen until after the case is presented on the criminal charges.
Rory O'Neill, NBC Radio national correspondent. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show to give us an update.
Thanks, guys.
The other question I'd have, we just ran out of time there with Rory, was, will they bundle these? Like, imagine what happens after what they did with the oil rig disaster in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, just pull all the
where they bundled them all together, and then one big negotiated plea deal, and then they're all just kind of passed out.
I think if he's open for a plea deal, if not, then I think he's going to have to go to trial on each one of them. And I'm curious about the plea deal. I think that for Diddy, the most important is the criminal trials, not the civil, because he can write the checks, but freedom's something different. And the one thing he doesn't want to have to do is serve prison, in my mind, because that's
you think he gets away without serving prison in this case?
I don't know.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know what kind of a plea deal he wants to make, because I think that's kind of the goal, is he's going to try to stay out of prison. And so whatever that looks like. And so that, if I was his lawyers and I was talking to the lawyer, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be like, what is it we got to do? How do I have to? What is it that we do to keep me out of prison? I'm not sure how he does it, but I think that's his goal, because that's, imagine his lifestyle over the past 30 years and then what that changes when you're in prison. And also, because you're Diddy in prison, you become a target.
You definitely become a target.
Yeah. And so that's kind of an issue. So he'd have to join a gang almost immediately. And then when and why, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff that's involved in that. And then they have leverage over him.
Remind me, who got killed? When did Biggie Smalls get killed? When did Tupac get killed?
Was Tupac? Biggie was first, and then Tupac.
Was Tupac the one in Vegas driving down the street?
Yeah.
And then how was Biggie killed? I don't remember that one.
I'd have to go back and look. That's one that I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to have to pull it out of my.
So 50 Cent is going to do a documentary on all this.
Oh boy, that's going to be fun. That is going to be fun. Because 50 Cent doesn't like Puffy. Doesn't like him at all. There. He died in L.A. Yeah, Biggie in '97. Yeah. He was murdered in L.A.
So
and then Tupac's the Vegas one a couple years later.
50 Cent was a vocal opponent of P. Diddy for the last 10 years. People magazine saying he's now going to do a documentary on all this, and he's even hinted that P. Diddy may have had some involvement with Biggie Smalls' death.
Yeah, there may be some, and that would be huge, because that would be someone under his own label, and that would be a big deal. On that one. So that would be huge. And 50 has not liked Combs for a long time. In fact, some of the best jokes made at Puff Daddy's expense, Sean Combs' expense, do come from 50 Cent. There is one that is fantastic that I don't know I should share it on the radio or not. It's so funny though.
We do have a certain manager.
I know. Today. It's you and I have to talk about it off air, because it's so funny, and it's just P. Diddy on a bicycle, and he's sitting there smiling. Yeah. Okay. We're going to do this. I'm going to get myself in trouble. So it's
tomorrow will be the Jeff show.
Yeah, it is. Tomorrow's the Jeff show. So basically it's just P. Diddy, and he's got a new, like, I think it's a new electric bike or something, but it's a new bike, and he's sitting there, and it's a pedal bike, and he's dressed all in black, and the bike's black, and he's sitting on the, and he's looking, he's smiling, like you're a kid with a new bike. And 50 Cent's response is, he's smiling so big because there's no seat.
Oh,
yeah. And I'm like, ow, that is vicious. That is vicious. And
part of the indictment, part of all this indictment stuff is it's very clear he swings always.
Oh yeah, buddy, and
young, old, male, female,
anything. Yeah, he's an omnisexual. Everything.
He needs to be off the streets for sure. Glad that this is happening.
Oh yeah,
but look, there's a ton. I mean, 100 lawsuits. Some probably aren't true, but when you get into the 30-year reign of this guy,
oh yeah, there's a lot,
and then the federal indictment, there's probably a lot of it that is true.
And the thing is, I don't think the feds aren't going to come for him unless they think they can get a rock solid conviction. They're not going to waste time because they know he has the money to fight back. And the last thing they want is to make him some sort of a martyr or use it to say, hey, the feds came after me and look at me, I beat them, blah, blah, blah. No. They are going to have this thing buttoned up before they go into court with him. So if the fact that they're going after him, they've got a really, really strong case. If I was his group of lawyers, I'd be really afraid. That's why, again, I'd be looking for a plea deal ASAP as quickly as possible.
Well, speaking of great lawyers, let me talk to you about Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. This guy's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. That matters because who you choose as a lawyer to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. He's the son of a police officer. Dan's a former seminarian. He's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than just being a really good guy, Dan is the winner. He is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that they're the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. And you're probably saying to yourself, I can't afford this guy. Not true. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551 or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS Law.com. P. Diddy, not the only star facing allegations of sexual misconduct. Garth Brooks as well, facing those. And I'm just going to say, I got ridiculed by a certain magazine one time here in Colorado for practicing the Billy Graham rules and living like Mike Pence.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, not a bad idea with all these allegations out there. Just live above reproach.
Yep. And you know what else is it's not a bad idea? We have been remiss on this one. It's not a bad idea for you to come and join us at IHOP. We are going to be out. They're going to let us out of the studio next week. Next Tuesday morning, we are going to be at the IHOP at Mississippi Avenue and 220, just west of 225. Come by and see us. We're going to be doing a live broadcast at IHOP in Aurora, the one that is on Mississippi, just west of 225. Come and join us. We're going to be there 6 to 10. I love me some IHOP. This is going to be fun. This is going to be great.
We always have good people that show up. It is a ton of fun. It's like a party breakfast.
It is.
This is next Tuesday.
Yep, next Tuesday. We're going to be out with the peoples in the Publix. So yeah, come on out and have breakfast with us.
Breadman texting P. Diddy the rat.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In many ways. In many ways. All right, we'll be coming up. We've got a lot more to cover, including Kamala Harris's track record as a district attorney. When you dig back into this, you go back into the New York Times archives, when you go back into the American Prospect archives, they're trying to bury these. But she spent years subverting a 2011 Supreme Court ruling requiring the state to reduce its prison population. What is it that she's got? We got a lot to cover. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Are innocent black men sitting in California prisons because of Kamala Harris? The New York Times covered this, not recently. No, but back in 2019. It's been buried. We're going to talk about the case of George Gage, an electrician with no criminal record who was charged in 1999 with sexually abusing his stepdaughter, who reported the allegation years later. This is from the Times in an article about Kamala Harris's criminal justice record. The case largely hinged on the stepdaughter's testimony, and Mr. Gage was convicted. Afterwards, the judge discovered that the prosecutor had unlawfully held back potentially exculpatory evidence, including medical reports indicating that the stepdaughter had been repeatedly untruthful with law enforcement. Her mother even described her as a pathological liar who lives her lies. In 2015, when the case reached the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco, Ms. Harris's prosecutors defended the conviction. They pointed out that Mr. Gage, while forced to act as his own lawyer, had not properly raised the legal issue in the lower court as the law required. The appellate judge acknowledged this impediment and sent the case to mediation, a clear signal for Ms. Harris to dismiss the case. When she refused to budge, the court upheld the conviction on the technicality. Mr. Gage is still in prison, serving a 70-year sentence. Case is not an outlier, they write. Ms. Harris also fought to keep Daniel Larson in prison on a 28-year-to-life sentence for possession of a concealed weapon, even though his trial lawyer was incompetent and there was compelling evidence of his innocence. You got to remember, back in 2019, 2020, Kamala Harris was running for president. She never made it even to the very first polls in Iowa. Her campaign collapsed, and many of it due to frustration, not from conservative prosecutors, but progressive prosecutors. One writing in the New York Times, Kamala Harris was not a progressive prosecutor. Another one writing in the American Prospect, how Kamala Harris fought to keep nonviolent prisoners locked up. And this story is wild because she was ordered by the U.S. Supreme Court to figure out a way to get California's unconstitutional prison population. They were at 145% to capacity. And the U.S. Supreme Court in 2011 required the state to reduce its prison population. She fought it all along the way. They even came up with a plan for nonviolent guys to get out. She fought it. Is she a warrior for justice or an incompetent attorney general? We're going to cover this and more. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jovan, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You've woken up in the greatest country in history. Let's get to work. We have a whole hour for you, engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. Phone lines are open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, do you remember that time Tulsi Gabbard ended Kamala Harris's bid to run for president? Well, a lot of what was behind it was her leadership as Attorney General of California. And it's not very good with regards to its treatment of prisoners, disobeying Supreme Court orders, even opinion pieces coming from progressive law professors from the University of San Francisco. Kamala Harris was not a progressive prosecutor. The senator was often on the wrong side of history when she served as California's attorney general. Was she being tough on crime? Was she being inconsistent? Or was she just a bad attorney general? We're going to cover this and more. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 49 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 75 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, the Denver City Council approved a rezoning measure Monday that will allow redevelopment of the area around Ball Arena. Kroenke Sports and Entertainment wants to create a new neighborhood around the arena, including new skyscrapers, housing, retail space, parks, and trash cans. The council also approved a measure that'll allow buildings that are higher than the current view plane in exchange for new affordable housing. A woman in Fort Collins was shot after trying to stop two men trying to break into her car outside her home. She was struck in the leg and recovering. The two males were wearing dark colored clothing, hoodies, and backpacks, and considered armed and dangerous as police asked for the public's help. An Auraria police officer who was shot in the arm on Monday morning while working on campus is recovering. Two officers tried to stop a man for trespassing, but ran off. He was later found by police and resisted arrest and pulled out a gun. He was eventually tracked down and now faces an attempted murder charge. 2 weeks away from Election Day, DJT in North Carolina on Monday to tour hurricane damage in Asheville. He's scheduled to hold a rally in Greensboro later today. Mike Stewart lost his business in the hurricane and had some powerful words for DJT.
And we lost a business, but there are a lot of people who lost everything, including loved ones. And I believe that you can serve as a great inspiration to this community right now. And the reason being is I think God's given you an indomitable spirit. And no matter what gets thrown at you, you find a way to press through. And I think that'll serve as an inspiration to this community to press on and move forward. I can't think of anything I'd rather have than a warrior leading our country, a warrior who, with the help of God.
Part of Trump's plan is to cut regulations. That only helps small business and the consumer. Democrats never want to do that. Something he talked about in a barber shop in New York a couple of days ago.
If what I'm planning comes out, it's a great question, by the way.
Everyone could attain the American
sophisticated cat, you know.
Everyone could attain the American dream if it wasn't for the high cost, that the burden of high taxes, and we're taxed at every step of the way.
Yeah.
When we make it, when
and
we spend
regulations.
It.
And regulations. So I cut more regulations in 4 years than any other president by 4 times.
Trump also knows it all starts with energy and not relying on foreign energy. Lara Trump, DJT's daughter-in-law, running the campaign on with Charlemagne the God, one of the biggest radio shows and podcasts in the country. Lara and Charlemagne the God.
How do you ask Mexicans and Muslims to ignore a lot of the rhetoric, Haitians to ignore a lot of the rhetoric that he said about them that is dangerous, that has villainized them, that has demonized them?
Well, I would say anyone who's coming to this country illegally, he's very against, and every American should be very against. If you're an American citizen, Donald Trump doesn't care your religion. He doesn't care what you look like. He will work for you, and he wants to make this country safe for you. We should all want a secure southern border. A lot of the comments get misconstrued that he says about people coming here illegally. They're breaking our federal law to come here illegally. And that should be upsetting to everyone.
But when you make these broad generalizations, you do hurt the Haitian Americans that are here, the Mexican Americans that are here. They all get labeled and villainized and demonized.
Yeah, but you know what? I think people are finally seeing through that. It's very easy to clip up something like that and say like, oh, let's push this out here.
Charlemagne, he's talking about illegals. And you know that, I think. Kamala Khan in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania today. And this stuff is over the top. Doug Emhoff, her husband, with his daughter, and also with Ben Stiller and Andy Cohen, whoever that is. I've seen him before, but this, you got to see the video of this. This is why they're voting for Kamala Khan.
About being a girl dad. I love how much smarter she is than all the guys in the room already. I can tell that she's going to be a powerhouse. She is already at 2.5.
My daughter's 22 and a half, is a feminist, incredibly strong, and has really just inspired me in so many ways. I love her.
I'm the proud dad of Ella over here.
My vote for Kamala is an investment in my daughter's future.
I agree. I'm right there with you.
When the Dobbs decision came out 2+ years ago, I heard from Kamala right away. And then the next person was Ella. She texted me right away, essentially saying, we need to fight. This is not just an issue for women. This is an issue for men and families.
No, it isn't.
And this is one of the many, many reasons why we've got to elect Kamala as president.
Never in my lifetime did I think that we would be having to fight for this and the fight for our own bodies. And I think it's really important for the men to step up and show that they actually support us and they're willing to put things on the line to help us.
The dads go in, yeah, I'm voting for my daughter to kill my grandchild.
Yeah.
It's just
crazy.
Exactly.
It's satanic. It is all about reproductive rights, even though there's no reproduction involved whatsoever. It's not reproduction if you
the choice
kill
was
the baby.
The choice was made when the deed was done.
These people are sick, man. They are sick. All right. Have a great day. 47 in a row. 45. You gotta see the video though. If you can, Jeff, check it out.
Push that on the X.
Dougie Emhoff, who hit his former girlfriend. There's video of it, and he's all about the women's rights. 47 in Aurora, 45 in Lafayette, 49 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. It's Tuesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Sunny, mild, nice October weather. Will be in the mid-70s today. Fair cool tonight, low to mid-40s, and mid-70s on Wednesday. Might get a little breezy in the afternoons. It will be cooler Thursday as the front passes through. Highs will be 60s, brisk northwest winds, 60s Friday, 60s and 70s and dry, and mild through the weekend and into Monday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Dude, I am all about good breakfasts because we don't get them in this job, Bill.
No, we don't eat.
I ate a bar on the way to work. That's some diet bar my wife gave me.
I eat something very early, normally either yogurt or cottage cheese, very early in the morning, and I don't eat again until noon. And so, it's a stretch. Yeah.
And so when you get the opportunity to go enjoy just a mile-high stack of pancakes at IHOP, do you remember when they tried on April Fool's joked about
yeah.
changing their name to
Yep.
IHOB.
Yeah. In fact, I did. It wasn't at IHOP, but I stopped yesterday. I was out doing some stuff. I stopped yesterday at a breakfast place.
Yeah.
In part because I don't get good breakfast with this job.
Yep.
So yeah. And so now
And we get to next
Yes, we do.
Tuesday, a week from today, the 29th, 6 to 10 a.m. at the IHOP located at Mississippi Avenue, just west of 225. You can come hang out with us. We're going to do a live broadcast there. I'm going to eat a mile-high stack of pancakes, 5,280 feet high. I would enjoy that. But we've got great food. It'll be a ton of fun. We always have a lot of fun. We invite some folks that are there to come on and join us on the show. So that's a chance. You can enjoy great food and just have fun with us for the morning.
Yeah.
That'll be 1 week before the election,
I know.
Bill.
1 week before the election. So we're going to be
Oh,
IHOP.
boy.
Yeah. Mississippi Avenue, just west of 225 next Tuesday. So come out and say hi.
So speaking of elections, this is what many people believe was the end of Kamala Harris's run for president in 2020, thanks to Tulsi Gabbard.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about reentering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to bring Congresswoman Gabbard back in. Your response.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Senator Harris.
Those strong words from Tulsi Gabbard, in many ways, collapsed Kamala Harris's run for president in 2020. I'm trying to understand Kamala Harris's leadership as Attorney General, because that was probably the closest she was to being an executive leader, right? As a senator, you're one of 100 and you can run your office and stuff. But she actually led the prosecutorial efforts of the state of California. And it's all over the place. In some capacities, people write her being, I'm tough on crime, I'm the law and order prosecutor. On others, written by progressives themselves back in 19 and 20, she was a disaster. The one that was the most telling, this comes from American Prospect. The writer's now a Slate, by no means a rock-ribbed conservative, details the Supreme Court's order to the state of California to deal with its prisoner overpopulation. At 155% capacity, there were too many prisoners, and it was unconstitutional. At one point, you had 50 prisoners using one toilet. And so the Supreme Court steps in, says this is not allowed. she fought that. This is what they write. Governor Brown, with Harris as his defense lawyer, did not agree with the Supreme Court's decision. Harris' office launched into a campaign of all-out obstruction, refusing to answer why they could not simply release low-risk, nonviolent inmates to conform to the Supreme Court's request. Defendants offered no explanation, however, why they would not release low-risk prisoners early, the June 2013 ruling stated. But Harris's office didn't stop there. Instead, they claimed on behalf of the state that the Supreme Court had no jurisdiction to even request such a release, refusing to answer questions as to how they would implement the Supreme Court ruling and courting a constitutional crisis. That resulted in a stunningly sharp rebuke from a 3-judge district court panel in June of 2013 ruling. When asked by what date the state could identify their list of prisoners who are unlikely to reoffend, quote, defendants defiantly refused, the judge wrote, and stated, somewhat astonishingly, that our suggestion that we might order defendants to develop a system to identify low-risk prisoners, a system that the Supreme Court had suggested we might consider ordering defendants to develop without delay, is a prisoner release order that vastly exceeds the scope of any of the court's prior orders. The Supreme Court, in fact, ruled that the 3-judge district court panel had exactly that authority in its 2011 ruling. In what they called tortured logic, the district court continued. Defendants suggested that the Supreme Court statement did not authorize the early release of prisoners or even consideration of that question. It got so bad, they considered holding the state that Kamala Harris was leading in contempt. They rejected that action only because it would have delayed the release of nonviolent inmates even further. A memo came out later that part of the reason they might not want to do this is because the state was looking at their nonviolent criminals as a possible workforce to take on wildfires that plague the state. This is from the article. In late 2014, lawyers from the office claimed that nonviolent offenders needed to stay incarcerated lest they lose bodies for fire camps in the wildfire-plagued state. I think part of the challenge, Bill, with Kamala Harris is that people want to go, well, she was a progressive attorney general. Others want to say, well, no, she was tough on crime. When I read this and then the New York Times opinion piece about them fighting against people that there was strong evidence shouldn't be in prison, I think the underlying issue with Kamala Harris is incompetency. I don't think that's why she falls into a progressive or a conservative worldview when it comes to prosecution. I think she's just bad at it.
Interesting take, and I can see how you can get there. The weird thing for me is hearing the arguments from what I would consider a conservative side of the things and Republicans, where it's you've got to be tough on crime. We've got to make sure we put these people behind bars. We don't have these, get out of jail free programs. We're talking here in Colorado, we've got a measure on the ballot that requires violent offenders to serve at least 85% of their sentence.
Right.
Yeah. So 85% of the sentence. So we like the idea of tough on crime, especially conservatives like that. But here, what I'm hearing is that Kamala was too tough. She was way too tough on the prisoners and way too tough on crime. And going back and looking when she ran for district attorney in San Francisco, and then also for AG in California, she wasn't considered a progressive prosecutor. In fact, when she ran in San Francisco, she was considered to be the moderate. The person she was running against was considered to be the very progressive person. And she ran as a more moderate. She ran as a tough on crime person. In fact, and one of the parts is, I think it was in San Francisco, she created kind of an alternative track for people that did get drug offenses and things like that. They would have to plead guilty to a felony. They went through an alternative program. And then if they completed the program and stayed out of trouble for a certain amount of time, the felony was expunged from their record. Then when she was AG, there were some real issues about her prosecution and not letting people out on drug offenses when they were overcrowded, not letting some of those low-level drug offenses go. And there was a lot of controversy inside of the state because they're pointing, wait, you started this program in San Francisco. How come you're not doing it there? And she didn't have some of the big grand statements that Gavin Newsom did, who always comes out and is very, very progressive. So she didn't do that. She played more, in my mind, close to what would be a conservative mindset on prosecutions as far as how she presented herself and how she presented the office. And she made people mad by not going after and not prosecuting even some death penalty cases. She actually spoke out against California at the time, removing the death penalty. She didn't like that idea. And in fact, and I think it was California was in her era was the 3 strikes you're out era, and that went across the country. And so they were very, very hard on that era of crime. So it's difficult for me. And it's also difficult for me looking back at what we see now and then judging those decisions based on the environment then, I think is also what kind of taints the picture a little bit.
Why I think it's so confusing to put her into these categories. And again, my thesis is just its incompetency. Here comes from the New York Times about her time as a district attorney from 2004 to 2011, again, written by a progressive, not a conservative. Ms. Harris was criticized in 2010 for withholding information about a police laboratory technician who had been accused of, quote, intentionally sabotaging, unquote, her work and stealing drugs from the lab. After a memo surfaced showing that Ms. Harris's deputies knew about the technician's wrongdoings and recent convictions, but failed to alert defense lawyers, a judge condemned Ms. Harris's indifference to the systemic violation of the defendant's constitutional rights. Ms. Harris contested the ruling by arguing that the judge, whose husband was a defense attorney and had spoken publicly about the importance of disclosing evidence, had a conflict of interest. Ms. Harris lost. More than 600 cases handled by the corrupt technician were dismissed. So what I see over and over again, whether it's the Supreme Court ruling, whether it's Mr. Gage, whether it's this time as her, is not competent leadership. That's why people get confused and go, well, okay, but she was for the death penalty, but she's also a progressive. Like, there's no clear theory that guided her leadership of the Attorney General's office. Instead, it's just kind of like falls on all these different lines because she was, and my thesis, my idea is that maybe she's just not a competent leader. I'd love to hear from our listeners. When you look at Kamala Harris and her leadership of the Attorney General's office, also district attorney of San Francisco, do you see somebody that was conservative in their prosecution, progressive in their leadership, or just incompetent? My argument, the third way. She just kind of falls along this because of her incompetency. I'd love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. And maybe you just don't care because she's not Donald Trump, which, you know, could be part of the voting block. That they look at her and they go, well, it wasn't perfectly run. Yeah, there's some issues there. But at least she's not Donald Trump. I'd love to hear from you.
And don't discount that, because we knew prior to Biden dropping out that there was about 20% of the electorate, 20 to 25% of the electorate that was out there in polls saying literally anybody else. And I think it topped out about 25%, but held strong right around 20%. So there is about 20% of potential voters out there that are just going to say literally anybody else. They just want a different choice. And I want to take a moment here, Jeff, to talk to our listeners about a choice, a different choice you can make with your life. And that choice is to do away with the pain. You're living your life in constant pain, like I was a couple of months ago before I met my friends at Balance Well Space. There are things that you've done, choices you've made, and now they're coming back to bite you. Or it's just the age, the wear and tear that all of our bodies go through. But what you don't have to go through is that daily pain. I have found an incredible solution, Balance Well Space. Check them out at balancewellspace.com. What makes them different? integrative medicine. That means they have a whole bunch of different treatments for you all under one roof. You make one appointment and you can receive physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, neuropathic care, chiropractic care, trigger point injections, and a whole list of cutting-edge technologies that are out there. They're all non-invasive, but are really just out of Star Trek. They've got to be seen to be believed. And the key is they talk to you. You sit down, you get an evaluation, you talk to them about what hurts. They take the pictures, they do the poking and the prodding. Then they put together a custom pain plan just for you. It's all about getting you to where you want to be and you living your best life. It sounds trite, but this is exactly what they do. Check them out at Balance Wellspace, balancewellspace.com, balancewellspace.com. Then every couple of weeks, they come back and they reevaluate your care. Yes, they are that concerned about making sure you feel better that they are going to reevaluate what they're doing to make sure you are reaching your goals. Your current medical team doesn't do that. When you go to or across the town for one appointment, you go somewhere else for a third appointment, somewhere else another appointment. They're never getting together on a Zoom call or a conference call and talking about your care and how they can work together. But that's what happens at Balance Wellspace. Check them out at balancewellspace.com. Brand new offices in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2. Couldn't be easier to find and plenty of parking. And I love the big shady trees. That's something I'm always looking for when I go somewhere to park. And so it's a nice feature for me. But most importantly, they are fantastic people. Dr. Julie, Dr. Jess, the entire team. And they're going to be focused on your pain and getting you better. Right now, as we're talking, I am regenerating the meniscus in my left knee that I tore over 9 years ago. It's feeling great. My right knee that now feels bad. My left knee, what used to be my weak knee, feels fantastic. I'm also regenerating the disc in my lower back because I've got two vertebrae that are starting to fuse together. We've created traction, pulled them apart, and now I'm regenerating part of that disc because of the amazing care I got at Balance Wellspace. Talk to the team. You won't regret it. These are the experts I trust, and I want them to be able to make the same change in your life they've made in mine. But in order to do that, got to talk to them. balancewellspace.com, balancewellspace.com. And when you do, tell them you heard about them here on Jeff and Bill because it helps us out a lot. I appreciate it.
Great to hear, Bill, that you're getting that workout in.
Oh, it's fantastic. And they even have me exercising now at home. And I hadn't been able to do that in years because of the pain that I was in.
Yeah.
Now they've got me working out and I'm on a regimen of every other day. So it's fantastic.
You need
great,
it,
man.
especially as you get older. I've learned that.
Oh,
you got to make it part of your daily regimen.
You do.
All right, we'll continue. I'd love to hear from you all. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. I don't think we've really done the necessary deep dive on her leadership as an attorney general of California. The evidence from progressives, not just conservatives, progressives, was that she was wildly incompetent to the point of keeping inmates in prison so she could use them to fight wildfires. That's not fair. Love to hear from you. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
The battleground state of Michigan has 8.4 million registered voters, which, according to Bridge, Michigan, is almost 500,000 more than the number of people who are eligible to vote in the state. In fact, they say many counties in the state have registration rates of more than 100%. The state's Secretary of State, Democrat Jocelyn Benson, has moved to dismiss the RNC's lawsuit. And even though she admits that hundreds of thousands of names are set to be removed from the voter rolls after the 2024 election, she's accusing Elon Musk of spreading, quote, dangerous misinformation. The pair got into a feud on X, with Musk responding to Benson saying, shame on you for blatantly lying to the public. You plan to remove the ineligible names after the election, which necessarily means there are 4 more people registered to vote than there are eligible voters. Attorneys for Benson say that since 2019, Benson has removed about 800,000 people from the statewide voter roll and that another 360,000 will be removed in 2025. Jury selection starts today for a U.S. Marine Corps veteran charged with manslaughter for placing a man in a deadly chokehold on a New York City subway train last year. The trial of Daniel Penny and the May 2023 death of Jordan Neely opens today in Manhattan. Witnesses say Neely had been shouting in an aggressive manner on a Manhattan train when Penny held him in a chokehold for about 3 minutes.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy, I got some bad news for all those in open enrollment.
Oh, what?
This from our friends over at Colorado Politics. Colorado insurance rates will increase more than 3 times the rate of inflation in 2025.
Oh, great. That's for all of us. That'll be universal. Yeah. That'll be even if you get your
I
insurance through private
love
insurers.
government involvement and stuff because it always makes things cheaper.
Well, do we know that if the Affordable Care Act wasn't passed, because before that was the issue?
What else is rising above inflation that's in the free market?
Well, I think we'd probably point to several things, but the issue being this, and one of them being healthcare costs, and that was the problem before the Affordable Care Act, was the constant rise of premiums, and the rise has slowed. It's not as large as it was earlier. And so what I disagree with is the premise that you believe that if there wasn't the Affordable Care Act, that premiums would be going up slower, that the rise would be less. We have nothing to show that, because prior to, the rise was greater.
Yeah, I see that as a bit of a specious argument, because you don't have the data to show it otherwise. So there's no control. I mean, so the argument was, well, prior to this, the rate was higher. Now we've done it. The rate seems to still go up, but we don't really know if it would have gone up the same rate.
What we do know is that in the past, it was on a certain trajectory. And since we passed the Affordable Care Act, that trajectory has changed. You would assume that the course change came based on the Affordable Care Act. And if we would remove it, you'd go back to what was before. We have no indication that without the Affordable Care Act, that the insurance companies would revert back to exactly what they were doing before.
I think there's a lot of evidence
on it
in every aspect of life that when the government gets involved, things get more expensive. Every aspect of life. Look at education. The government got involved in that. Now it's involved in healthcare. And if you're just an average family, the amount you're having to pay for your insurance is like the cost of a little car at this point. What is it? $25,000 you're going to pay a year to insure a family? Like, that is it's just crazy. And government, no government, we're not figuring out ways to reduce this, and it needs to be reduced. I think price transparency could help.
No, that wouldn't help at all.
You don't think price and transparency would help?
Least.
In shopping and all that stuff?
How are you able to shop? Tell me how if you had price transparency, you're able to shop.
I would love to know what the costs were.
Provider.
I know you don't like tying health insurance to employees, employers.
That's the problem. And here's the reason why the price transparency won't help, is because you are already pre-constrained on your choices based on your employer's plan.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So the issue being this. So if you went out there and you, based on what plan your employer has, you could go out and price shop, and you can find out there are all these other facilities that it would be less expensive for you to have the treatment, but your insurance doesn't cover it. So instead of paying a partial, you're paying the whole thing. Now it's more expensive. It's more expensive for you to go outside the care network. That's the problem. We don't have competition. And I understand you're talking about...
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's a fair argument. We don't have competition.
And that's the problem. You're looking for free market solutions in an area in which it's not the free market. So that is the core problem. Because of the lobbyists in Washington, they don't want it to be. They don't want it to be a free market system. They like this. This is incredibly profitable. Have you seen their profits? They're making money hand over fist. The last thing they're going to do is give us, the consumer, more agency over our choice so that we can make different choices based on the free market that would constrain their possibility of making profits. No. They want to sign us up into these large groups where thousands of people don't have a choice, and it's going to be chosen by their employer. And then based on that employer's choice, you then have this. They have a ready-made market. Imagine what McDonald's would do if you come to it and go, you know what? I'm going to have you feed my people 3 meals a day. You're going to do that every day. And I've got 10,000 people that are going to work across the country in this, and 10,000 meals. You'd go, yes, please. I want to sign that up. Is cost going to be an issue for you? No. Because you have 2 different payers at that point. Yeah. So constraining cost means nothing. So what you can do is you can hose the employer, and then you can hose the employee and make more money. Now you've got a $25 Big Mac.
The
Yes,
rigged system.
That's exactly it. There is
Make
no free market
America healthy
competition.
again. By the way, Gabe's got a good text message here. I mean, because this is how people feel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you just are getting hit after hit. Home insurance is
absolutely.
increasing more than inflation.
Yep.
Property tax is up. Health insurance is up and will increase more than 3 times the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
Everything is more expensive. I don't think the quality is as good as it used to be. And I think
It
a lot
doesn't
of
have
it,
to
to
be.
your point, Billy, it's a rigged system. You know what's not rigged, though?
What?
Advanced hair restoration.
Absolutely.
For many of us, it's happening. Your hair's thinning, your crown's disappearing. Maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity's lost altogether. Well, I've got good news. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day, and it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. We've all seen the pills, lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have. But what if what you want is your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? From Advanced Hair state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe will your hair regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver, just like we are. Top Talk radio show. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR, or advancedhair.com, advancedhair.com. Well, so Bill, if this is the state we're in, to Gabe's text here, great text, homeowners insurance is increasing more than inflation. Florida can't even buy home insurance anymore. You've got property tax in Colorado thanks to the repeal of Gallagher. Thank you, Dick Wadhams, for that one. And now Colorado insurance rates will increase more than 3 times the rate of inflation in 2025. Headline out of Colorado Politics. You have Donald Trump kind of forging the alliance with Robert F. Kennedy and the idea of make America healthy again. We're going to go after the pharmaceutical industry.
Just on a side note,
we're going to
RFK Jr. is not the person that's going to get the America healthy again. He has backwards ideas about it, but that's good.
Well, I'd be happy to hear those, Bill, because what is I feel like Kamala Harris is driving us towards socialism and socialized medicine, which is just going to be more expensive and crappier. Who's gonna solve this problem better in your opinion?
Oddly enough, though, and this is a difficult conversation to have this morning. It's a difficult conversation to have on KNUS, but oddly enough, some of those socialized healthcare systems cost less and have better results than our American system. So the idea of going to a single payer or socialist system doesn't mean worse care, more expensive, because other nations are achieving it.
Dude, I feel like we've already gone in this direction, and it's literally like we just described, worse care and more expensive.
But that's not the experience around the world. There are numerous countries that have a socialized medical system. Finland, Germany, England,
Canada
Spain.
Stinks. People are racing here to get surgery because you got to sit there for 6 months to get your surgery done.
That's not that Canada stinks, and it depends on what the surgery is. But they have the mortality rate, the life expectancy rate, the infant mortality rate, the overall health. Much better in many countries that have a socialized system. And you know what the other countries that have a socialized system don't have? Medical bankruptcy. And that is the number one way an individual in America goes bankrupt. It's because of medical bills. That doesn't happen somewhere else. We have people that we talk about rationing care, and that what will happen under a socialist system is you'll ration care. People are self-rationing right now because they can't afford it. That's already happening. We're already rationing our care. So we're already making choices to not have certain.
I see on one hand, we're already charging towards the single payer healthcare system, and yet we're complaining about all the problems that we have. I think it's a combination of both government and the rigging of the system. And I think Donald Trump has a better plan to deal with that than Kamala Harris does. I think Kamala Harris's solution is just going to be more government, more rigging, more lobbyists. Please, pharmaceutical companies, send in all your people, and we'll make sure that we get the bills you want passed. I don't see any effort coming from Kamala Harris whatsoever to try to challenge the system and maybe go, if we free it up a little bit, which we know pretty much always works. Free markets, transparency, competition. It's going to result in better care that's more affordable. I'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. Speaking of people providing great care, let me talk to you about Dr. Mike and Rocky Mountain Dental Group. Look, with all the work I've had done to my teeth, believe me, finding a good dentist makes all the difference. Dr. Mike and the Rocky Mountain Dental Group help people like you and me look and feel amazing by providing the best dental care available. See for yourself all the 5-star reviews at RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. Here's one. Every single person in this office is delightful. Their knowledge and consultative approach to dental care is fantastic. We'll highly recommend to everyone I know. Look, if your gums are receding, it's critical to address the issue promptly. Dr. Mike is a top-tier expert in the Chow pinhole surgical technique. Actually, he's met the guy who created it. Spent time training from him. This method requires no cutting, no sutures, and virtually no downtime. The pinhole surgery is so painless that many clients go on to have other areas of the mouth treated as well. They also offer sedation if you have any apprehension at all. So why not turn the visit to the dentist into a good experience? Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Mike. Call 303-233-1335 or visit RockyMountainDentalGroup.com. RockyMountainDentalGroup.com to book your free consultation today. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Headlines from our Colorado politics. Colorado insurance rates will increase more than 3 times the rate of inflation in 2025. Congratulations. We live in a progressive state where everything's more expensive and nothing works. Let's go to Dean on the phone lines. Dean, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
That's exactly true about nothing works. But you're talking about socialized medicine. Try Canada and Europe. I have friends in both, recognizing that in Canadian case, they're coming down to the States to get care. And in Europe, they carry private insurance.
Yeah, there's a private split in some countries in Europe. But how come, if our healthcare system is so great, why do we spend more and achieve worse outcomes? We spend more than twice the amount of our GDP than anybody else.
In the medical schools in the country, sir, they're limiting people able to go, students qualified, and they're not expanding the medical schools here in Colorado, North Dakota, at least states that I'm intimately familiar with. They could deal twice as many. Why do you think they were down there, the place where Reagan attacked, that island down there where they have a medical school? Because people are applying here and not able to go.
Why are they not able to go here?
You got to look at your college situation, your university situation.
Aren't they able to go?
Why?
Yeah.
Because they have a limited input. They're limiting their input. There's not free competition.
Why would they do that? Wouldn't they want to make more money? Isn't that the free market? I mean,
No. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I don't know what you know about university education, but the schools typically, they have not increased the size of the medical schools in the universities across the country as they should have.
Then
given
why
the
didn't
increase
someone,
in population.
If it is so profitable, then why doesn't someone start a new
It's
school?
not profitable.
That would be the competition issue, because there's nothing constraining anybody from going out there and starting their own medical school outside of getting the licenses and building the facility.
But who controls the medical schools in the universities? Who controls the input into the medical schools in the universities? Look at that closely, sir.
Who controls the input? You mean by the people? That would be based on
the
applications.
admissions office.
That
right?
would be applications.
Yes.
And the admissions office in a brand new school would be able to admit brand new kids. That would be the issue. The solution you're looking for is a market solution. If it really was so profitable and we needed all these doctors, you'd have new schools popping up. So what happens with the restaurants and what happens with coffee shops. Yeah.
All right. We're less than 2 weeks from the election. Dean, appreciate the call. Continue to stick with 710 KNUS for all the updates you need. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.